Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. We bring you hundreds of novel audiobooks covering every genre and every kind of story you can imagine. Action? We've got it. Adventure? Absolutely. Horror? Of course. Whether it's the legendary Uchiha massacre or outrageous tales like stealing Naruto's and Sasuke's women, you'll find it here. From epic series like One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail, and Hunter x Hunter, to countless other adventures, our library has it all. Love novels but don't have time to read? No worries, just plug in your earbuds, sit back, and let the story take over. Good listening, and happy hearing, a mix of strict discipline and calculated encouragement. The method was simple but effective. Combined with Kyosuke's knack for painting a grand vision, Yaoi no longer had the heart to think of anything else. She was deeply moved. For Kyosuke, it was merely a few points he had spent. But for Yaoi, he was the person who saved her from misery, freed her from her curse, and gave her precious knowledge. Moved wasn't enough to describe the waves surging in her heart. Locking eyes with Kyosuke, Hyuga Yaoi spoke with determination, "Rest assured. Yaoi will not disappoint you." "Good. I'm looking forward to seeing what you can achieve." After concluding this critical meeting, Kyosuke turned to focus on two matters before him. First, to eliminate the threat posed by the Uzumaki clan. Second, Mido Uzumaki was finally leaving. At the camp's entrance, Mido stood with her pack slung over her back, glaring daggers at Kyosuke. "What?" Kyosuke asked in confusion. "I'm letting you go. Why do you look like you want to kill me?" If he hadn't spoken, it would have been fine. But once he did, Mido exploded. "You bastard. You spread the rumor that I'm going back to the clan to prepare for childbirth. PFFT. Kyosuke almost choked on his spit. After coughing hard, he waved his hand dismissively. "Of course not. We're friends now. How could I spread such a rumor?" "Really?" Mido asked, still skeptical. She was indeed heading back. Not to prepare for childbirth but to help her father with clan affairs. The next time they met, it would likely be on the battlefield. Thinking of this, Mido's anger dissipated, replaced by a sense of irritation and frustration. As a princess of Hineti village, her status constrained her, often forcing her to suppress her emotions. After staring at Kyosuke's face for a while, she suddenly grabbed his arm and bit down hard on his wrist. "What the hell?" Kyosuke yelled. "Humphrey." After biting him, Mido stood with her hands on her hips and declared confidently. "This is a warning. Next time we meet, I'll make you regret it." Mido turned away, her lips moving as if silently mouthing something. Then, without looking back, she disappeared from Kyosuke's sight. "Don't forget me," she said. With an escort team ensuring her safety, Mido returned to the Uzumaki clan's territory without incident. Her arrival was met with jubilation from the Uzumaki ninja, who celebrated as if they'd won a war. Her father, Uzumaki Ashina, was pleased but maintained a stern demeanor as he called her into his tent. When he learned she wasn't returning to prepare for childbirth, Uzumaki Ashina finally sighed in relief. "Those damned Uchiha. No daughter of mine will marry into their clan." For some reason, Mido felt a sharp pain in her heart. After a long silence, she softly said, "Father, teach me adamantine sealing chains." This powerful sealing technique was difficult, and she had previously resisted learning it. But now, Mido understood one thing: only with sufficient strength could she turn the impossible into reality. This was a lesson Kyosuke had taught her. Ha ha ha, good. That's the spirit of a princess of Hineti village. Uzumaki Ashina was delighted. After a year of trials, his daughter had finally matured. With a will to grow stronger, he was confident she would become a top-tier ninja under his guidance. At that time, he would definitely find a chance to avenge himself, preferably by capturing that Uchiha brat. After a year of fighting, Uzumaki Ashina had enough of the elusive boy. If you asked him which ninjutsu he hated the most, the Flying Thunder God would undoubtedly be at the top of the list. Forget it, let's not think about that for now. Let's let the soldiers celebrate today," Uzumaki Ashina said, smiling with relief. Chapter 59, Facing My Bastard Child. Elder Hiraki, did you call for me? Lifting the curtain, Kyosuke found that a group of important figures had gathered inside the tent. Even Tenjin was present, which was unusual, as he usually refrained from attending Uchiha meetings. This scene indicated that they were preparing for something significant. Ignoring Yaoi, who was kneeling at the back, Kyosuke confidently sat down and asked with a light chuckle, "I'm here, just tell me what the matter is." Seeing this, Elder Hiraki took out a declassified letter and passed it around for everyone to read. When it reached Kyosuke, the Dance King couldn't help but ask, "A surprise attack on the convoy in the land of the whirlpools?" "That's right." Elder Hiraki nodded and said, "The enemy is conducting long-distance operations, and their subsequent supply lines are likely to face problems." Reliable sources have informed us that several supply caravans disguised as merchant convoys are heading toward the battlefield. I need you to intercept them. Upon hearing this, Kyosuke and Madara exchanged a glance, still not understanding Elder Hiraki's true intention. Attacking the supply convoy could be done by sending a few subordinates, so why make such a big deal out of it? This meant that Elder Hiraki likely had other plans. Sure enough, Elder Hiraki soon revealed his true purpose. After destroying the convoy, I want you to charge deep into the land of the whirlpools and cause chaos. I will launch a full-scale assault at the same time. If Uzumaki Ashina doesn't retreat, he will face the fall of his country. Clearly, Elder Hiraki had no intention of continuing to stall with the enemy. Deep into enemy territory, huh? Kyosuke shrugged, showing no concern for the difficulty of the task. With the Flying Thunder God technique, it didn't matter whether the battle was in enemy territory or not, it made no difference to him. Not only Elder Hiraki, but Kyosuke was also tired of fighting against the Uzumaki clan. In fact, his long years of warfare had made him mentally and physically exhausted. If it weren't for the points system, he wouldn't want to keep immersing himself in bloodshed. He enjoyed fighting, yes, but it couldn't go on endlessly. Can't even let me live? He sighed inwardly. The Flying Thunder God still hadn't reached the second stage, largely due to his ongoing war career. If he had enough time to practice, he would have mastered the ability to teleport to moving coordinates by now. I really want to take a break. Kyosuke thought with a sigh. Meanwhile, Madara's expression shifted, as if he had realized the brilliance of the plan. The mobility of space ninjutsu would make it difficult for the enemy to track their movements. If the enemy couldn't find them, the land of the whirlpools would continue to be passive, and eventually, the Uzumaki clan would have to take action. At that point, the power of the Uzumaki clan would easily be resolved. It's a good plan. Madara nodded, his voice serious. The team shouldn't be too large. Just the two of us will be enough. Two? Elder Hiraki glanced at Izuna, hesitating slightly. Isn't that a bit too few? I'll go too. Izuna spoke up, but was immediately silenced by his older brother's glare. Stay here and help Elder Hiraki. Kyosuke said with a side glance. The troops they brought were loyal to their father, Tajima, and without them, the entire camp would be in disarray. Therefore, Izuna had to remain behind. However, two people were indeed a bit too few. If they encountered a large-scale encirclement, they would only be forced to flee. Maya and Izumi needed to lead the troops, so Kyosuke couldn't bring them along, and Madara's side was likely in a similar situation. Without near elite Jonin-level strength, they would only be a hindrance. For a moment, no one could find a suitable candidate. Until Tenjin spoke up. For the team, let Yaoi go with you. Tenjin suggested. With her Byakugan, the mission should go smoothly. What he didn't say was that his disciple's strength was likely comparable to that of the two others. Yaoi, 13 years old, a little older than Madara, originally had extraordinary talent. Since implanting the Otsutsuki cells, her cellular activity had greatly increased. In other words, her chakra reserves had grown significantly. Although not on the level of Mido's Yin-Seal or Hashirama's, her chakra far exceeded that of an average Jonin. In fact, her chakra reserves might even surpass Madara's current capacity. Of course, Kyosuke knew the price behind this. No power came without a cost. All gifts of fate had their price. Accepting power meant enduring the pain of cellular backlash, and to accept this help, Yaoi had to betray her entire clan. No one would freely give such gifts without a hidden agenda. The only difference was whether the recipient was aware of it. Fine. Elder Hiraki smiled, his gaze sweeping over the three of them. This war is entrusted to you. Once I leave, the camp will be in your hands. After taking the supplies prepared by Maya, he gave a brief instruction and made his way to the agreed meeting point. Soon, he met the lightly armed Madara. Seeing the large bag on Madara's back, Kyosuke couldn't help but shake his head in resignation. He knew there was no convincing him to live in poverty. This guy, wherever he went, needed to be well-fed and well-treated, never compromising on food. What a shame. Madara said regretfully, patting Kyosuke's shoulder. We couldn't keep the princess of the Uzumaki clan. If you had married her, the land of the whirlpools might have become our ally. Huh? Kyosuke looked at him in disbelief. Marry that bean sprout? Maybe when she's on par with Tsunade, then we can talk about it. Wait a second, did Madara just? Kyosuke turned his head, his face darkening. Do you have anything to explain about the rumors that have been circulating lately? He had thought, how could rumors about Mido's pregnancy have spread so suddenly? Now it made sense. It was all Madara's doing. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Madara replied, avoiding Kyosuke's glare. Stop turning away, look me in the eye, you bastard. I have no idea what you're talking about. Hey, Your ability to lie is as bad as your teleportation jutsu. The two stood at the entrance of the camp, bickering, until Yaoi arrived, bringing a temporary halt to their argument. Let's go. Madara took charge, and the three-person team quickly headed east toward the Land of Fire. To disrupt the morale of the Uzumaki clan, they had to make the enemy fear them. So, after eliminating the disguised supply convoy, they would charge straight into the enemy's headquarters. With the capital in danger and their family at risk, Kyosuke was certain that the Uzumaki clan couldn't stay idle for long. To avoid their extinction, the Uzumaki army had to return quickly. For Kyosuke himself, the Land of the Whirlpools still held many treasures worth exploring, such as various ceiling scrolls, and the strange mask that could connect to the Shinigami. Chapter 60, Infiltrating the Hidden Whirlpool Village. Hashirama awakens wood-style gentle fist, 8 trigrams vacuum palm. The head of the Hyuga clan was not lying. Hyuga Yaoi's strength was indeed remarkable. It could be said that her contribution in the surprise attack on the supply convoy was absolutely crucial. The Byakugan is indeed useful. Even someone as proud as Madara had to admit her excellence. With the restrictions of the caged bird seal lifted, her Byakugan gradually began to return to its original state. However, the damage was irreversible, and her eyes would never return to their pure form. Kyosuke speculated that, relying solely on her strength, it might be impossible for her to awaken the Tensei again. Unless she could acquire a pair of Byakugan that had not been tainted by the cursed seal. To do that, she would have to take action against the Hyuga clan. Since her current strength was insufficient, Hyuga Yaoi decided to wait. Attacking the main branch of the Hyuga clan was no small task, even the slightest mistake could lead to irreversible consequences. Moreover, transplanting eyes was not as simple as just inserting them, she first needed to master the relevant techniques. Boom. The fire style, Great Fireball, cleared the area, and the trio continued toward their next target. According to intelligence, 7 teams were advancing along different routes. Finding them all would be difficult, as it would require considerable time and effort. Fortunately, the team had a perfect countermeasure. They had scattered Flying Thunder God Kunai throughout the area, using the Byakugan to monitor passing merchant convoys. As soon as a suspicious target was found, the team could reach it instantly. Following the principle of better to kill an innocent than to let one enemy escape. Anything marked as suspicious was immediately destroyed, regardless of the truth. Would anyone resist? Even better, this would solidify the adversarial stance, making it easier to kill them without psychological burdens. In about 3 days, the team destroyed over 20 merchant convoys, possibly including some unreported supply teams. In any case, the task of cutting off supply lines was complete, and now, the real action was about to begin. The surprise attack on the capital of the Land of Whirlpool. The Land of Whirlpool was not very large, about a third of the size of the Land of Water. As for the Land of Fire, it could accommodate 6 times the area of the Land of Water. The Land of Wind and Earth were even larger, but most of their land was dangerous, uninhabitable areas. The Land of Fire had the most habitable land. The team took a boat from the border, and after drifting for a week on the sea, they finally set foot on the Land of Whirlpool. Looking at the lively coastline, Kyosuke couldn't help but sigh. No wonder Hidden Lee Village has good relations with the Land of Whirlpool. These people practically have a natural barrier to defend against the Land of Water. The sea was turbulent, and without fixed routes, it was easy to encounter danger. For the Mist Ninjas to reach the Land of Fire, they had to pass through the Land of Whirlpool shipping routes, which meant Hidden Lee Village could be alerted in advance. Such is politics. The Land of Whirlpool had 13 cities. Although the land was small, it had produced a large number of influential figures in the ninja world. Starting from the clan leader Uzumaki Ashina, the first 9 Tails Jinchuriki Uzumaki Mido, and the second generation's Uzumaki Kashina. There is also Fuso, who escaped from the Rain Country, Nagato's mother, Nagato, who liked to carry rice, and even Karen from the Orochimaru's team, who is also a member of the Uzumaki clan. P.S. Pain is known in China as the person who carries rice. As for why, you can Google it, not to mention the future Naruto Uzumaki and his son, who would change the course of the ninja world. The Uzumaki clan was naturally gifted with powerful chakra, which made them ideal candidates for being Jinchuriki or test subjects for forbidden jutsu. However, the degree of awakening of their chakra differed from person to person, leading to significant variations, much like the Uchiha clan. The Uzumaki clan members were also known for their longevity. You could find elderly members living over 100 years. Thus, the Hidden Whirlpool Village was often called the Longevity Village. The Hidden Whirlpool Village was the highest authority in the Whirlpool country, combining military and political control. One of the few places in the ninja world where such a system existed. To cause significant upheaval, the team would have to infiltrate this village. But before carrying out the mission, Kyosuke wanted to find something valuable. He took out 2 special kunai and handed them to his companions. I'm going to scavenge a bit. Uzumaki Ashina definitely has some good stuff. I had the same idea. Hyuga Yaoi nodded, her eyes glimmering with interest. She had now fully transformed into a researcher, immersed in the pursuit of knowledge. The Uzumaki clan was a natural experimental body, and she couldn't resist the temptation. On the other hand, Madara was indifferent. The Uchiha clan's treasure trove was his to take at will. He could take the ancestral fan whenever he wanted. The Uzumaki treasures? Madara wasn't interested in them. You guys do as you please, I'll go explore the more important facilities. Madara said, prioritizing the mission. The difference between maturity and immaturity was clear. After a swift journey, the team arrived at the outskirts of the hidden whirlpool village just before nightfall. Let's wait until dark. Kyosuke observed the area. He knew that the small village was likely covered by some sort of barrier. If they tried to force their way in, they would quickly alert the guards. Even the act of throwing kunai from the air could easily raise the enemy's suspicion. What should we do? Kyosuke turned his head and looked around. Soon, he spotted a convoy entering the checkpoint for inspection. I have an idea. As long as they took advantage of the insufficient number of guards and placed a flying thunder god kunai on one of the carriages, they could pass by unnoticed. I'm such a clever little genius, Kyosuke thought to himself, feeling proud of his idea. Finding a hidden spot to rest, the team recuperated while waiting for the night to fall. As they ate soft bread, Kyosuke suddenly sighed and looked at the absent-minded Madara Uchiha. Did you get the news? What are you talking about? Madara looked at him in confusion, only to see Kyosuke gesturing with his hair to imitate a pot lid. Madara struggled to suppress the twitching of his lips. With others around, he didn't want to make a move that could ruin his image. Kyosuke's exaggerated facial expressions weren't lost on him. He knew exactly who Kyosuke was imitating. Every time he woke from a dream, that figure had appeared in his mind, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't forget it. Hashirama. Before they left, news came from the front lines. A young man from the Senju clan had appeared, able to use strange ninja techniques. After various verifications, it was finally confirmed that the young Senju ninja was using a mysterious power called wood style. This technique was incredibly dangerous. It had the dense power surpassing earth style, the wide range comparable to water style, and the destructive force exceeding fire style. Faced with such potential in this young ninja, Tajima Uchiha certainly wouldn't leave him unchecked. A 3-member assassination squad of elite Jonin infiltrated the enemy camp, preparing to carry out an assassination on Senju Hashirama. It was during this battle that the god of shinobi first gained fame. Having successfully mastered the wood-style clone technique, Hashirama single-handedly defeated 3 Uchiha Jonin. In no time, news of his power spread throughout the entire ninja world. Chapter 61, The Shinigami of the Naruto world. Hashirama was strong, and Madara had already realized this. However, he didn't expect that while he was still troubled by the Uzumaki clan, Hashirama had already made a name for himself on the front lines of battle. In the heart of the Land of Fire, where the Uchiha and Senju clans clashed, the battlefront stretched for thousands of miles, filled with bloodshed and carnage, where clan leaders became regular participants in the war. Compared to the brutal warfare over there, their battle with the Uzumaki clan was like child's play. Recalling their past agreement, Madara couldn't help but murmur. Is that distant, unreachable dream what drives you forward? Looking up at the crescent moon in the sky, Madara's expression slowly shifted. For both personal and professional reasons, he couldn't afford to linger here any longer. Once the Uzumaki clan was dealt with, he would have to head to the main battlefield, where true combat, filled with blood and steel, awaited. Beside him, Kyosuke shook his head with a helpless smile. Every time Madara spoke of Hashirama, he would fall silent and become completely lost in his thoughts. He had initially planned to discuss the composition of wood style and possibly ask Madara for a way to counter it. But now, it seemed Madara was completely immersed in sweet memories, forgetting there were 2 others present. After what felt like an eternity, Madara snapped out of his reverie and stood up, his face serious. It's about time. Upon hearing this, the 3 of them immediately performed the transformation technique and placed their hands on Kyosuke's shoulder. Let's go. Before the words had even fully faded, the 3 of them had vanished from sight. Hidden Whirlpool Village, south corner. Looking around at the completely different scenery, Madara and Yaoi exchanged a glance, both feeling a sense of nostalgia. Neither of them were new to traveling with Kyosuke, but the experience of being transported to a location several kilometers away in the blink of an eye never failed to amaze them. Go ahead, take your kunai, and I'll find you if anything happens, Kyosuke said. He then raised both hands, crossing 2 fingers in front of him. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Bang, bang, bang. The 6 clones, identical to the original, caused Madara and Yaoi to blink in surprise. What the heck? How can we not tell which one is his real body? The strength of the shadow clone jutsu lies in its ability to create near-perfect copies. While it's not impossible to differentiate the clones from the original, it requires exceptionally sharp eyes. Something neither of them could achieve at the moment. This was also due to Kyosuke's exceptional mastery of the technique. Shadow Clone Jutsu, Level 4, as one of the most commonly used ninja techniques, he had pushed his Shadow Clone Jutsu to Level 4. Based on his estimations, reaching Level 6 would unlock the possibility of learning multiple Shadow Clone Jutsu. Thinking about this, Kyosuke's gaze instinctively shifted to his attribute panel. Name, Kyosuke Uchiha. Age, 10. Physical strength, Elite Chunin. Mental strength, Jonin. Chakra level, Jonin. Skills mastered, Uchiha style sword art, Level 6. 3. Body technique, Level 6. Throwing techniques, Level 7. Chakra control, Level 5. Hand seals, Level 6. Shijue's style teleportation jutsu, Level 5. Chidori, Level 6. Flying thunder god technique, Level 3. Shadow Clone Jutsu, Level 4, Bloodline Limit, Sharingan, 3. Tomoe, Summon Beast, Non-Ninja Tools, Non-Points, 4268. Apart from the Shadow Clone, other abilities had also seen significant growth. However, once a skill reaches Level 6, the speed of upgrading slows dramatically. Throwing techniques were simple, and every use of them increased experience. Aside from that, there were no other abilities that could surpass the Level 6 cap. The Flying Thunder God technique was especially absurd. Despite a year of intense study, it had only reached Level 3. Kyosuke had a rough idea of how long it took for Minato Namikaze to perfect this technique. From his conversations with Obito, there had likely been a gap of 4 or 5 years, or possibly even longer. With that thought, Kyosuke felt a bit more at ease. His mental and chakra strength were currently at the typical Jonin level. Not outstanding but still far beyond the average Chunin. As for his physical strength, there had been some improvement, but his 10-year-old age still limited his development in taijutsu. There was nothing to be done, so Kyosuke continued to focus on studying the Chidori, starting with its shape transformation and gradually moving on to studying the nature transformation of lightning style. This was a skill the system couldn't help with, and only hard work would lead to mastery. Thus, the Shadow Clone Jutsu became extremely important for him. By using Shadow Clones, he managed to impress his companions, and with satisfaction, Kyosuke gave different orders to each of them. One clone was tasked with searching for the location of the shrine. Another had to set up Flying Thunder God kunai to prevent the inevitable enemy pursuit. One more was assigned to find Uzumaki Ashina's residence to loot his sealing scrolls. Kyosuke's main body could wander around freely while the shadow clones did all the hard work, tirelessly fulfilling their roles. If he had this ability in real life, he could work 6 or 7 jobs and take advantage of capitalism. What a thrilling thought. After wandering aimlessly for a while, Kyosuke finally received intelligence from his shadow clones. Using the coordinates left by the dissipating clones, he performed a Flying Thunder God technique and arrived at the legendary Uzumaki Shrine. Looking at the familiar scene, his thoughts drifted, and he seemed to envision a future moment where Orochimaru would bring Sasuke to this place. Now, which one is the so-called Shinigami mask? Kyosuke curiously approached. From his memory, he quickly found the demon mask, which resembled the Shinigami. Driven by curiosity, he placed the mask on his face. The next moment, an indescribable terror descended, and strange chakra seemed to come from the skies, enveloping Kyosuke's body entirely. Damn! As his chakra flared up, he struggled to remove the mask. This cursed Shinigami was too bizarre, it felt like his body was being taken over. The cold, eerie energy felt familiar to chakra but had some strange differences. In the dim shadows, a terrifying phantom appeared behind Kyosuke, and the chilling force intensified several times over. He could barely hold on. Get the hell off me. At the critical moment, Kyosuke activated his Sharingan. The sudden surge of mental energy allowed him to break free from the supernatural grip. Seizing the opportunity, Kyosuke ripped off the mask and threw it to the ground. Phew. That was absurd. After a long while, he finally managed to calm his rapidly beating heart. Picking the mask back up from the ground, Kyosuke frowned deeply, a question rising in his mind. What exactly are these so-called gods, like the Shinigami and the Jashin worshipped by the Jashin cult? Chapter 62, a map recording the location of a legendary weapon. Kyosuke carefully stored the mask. He had a feeling that one day he would definitely need it. Now, what's next? Looking at the ancient shrine in front of him, he quickly formed hand seals and released a sea of fire that engulfed the shrine completely. Fire style, great fireball. This strange place doesn't need to stay. With his words, Kyosuke was already 2 kilometers away, standing in front of a mansion. This was Uzumaki Ashina's residence. His shadow clone not only found the place but also discovered some interesting things. Kyosuke picked up a scroll that his clone had found. Upon opening it, it clearly recorded the methods of training sealing jutsu. Perhaps Uzumaki Ashina never imagined someone would be so daring to break into his house and steal from him. The painstakingly drawn sealing jutsu techniques were now handed over to Kyosuke, his enemy. In fact, it wasn't just the sealing jutsu scroll. Kyosuke bent down and picked up a map. Compared to the scroll which didn't contain any S-rank sealing techniques, the map recorded even more intriguing content. In the ninja world, weapons come in many types, and their prices can fluctuate drastically depending on their chakra conductivity. Among them, legendary weapons can perfectly transmit chakra and are exceptionally sharp. Their sturdiness reaches an astonishing level where nothing can destroy them. The map Uzumaki Ashina had collected recorded the location of the Kusanagi sword. Since the beginning of his training, Kyosuke had never given up on honing his sword art. In the future, when facing enemies who are immune to ninjutsu, his excellent sword art would provide a significant boost to his strength. Therefore, he was very interested in finding the Kusanagi sword. Looking up at the dim moonlight and the increasingly noisy village around him, Kyosuke smiled slightly, knowing it was time to take action. He slowly raised his palm. At first, Kyosuke wanted to burn down Uzumaki Ashina's mansion with fire, but suddenly, the image of the angry girl with a bun on her head appeared in his mind. After a moment of thought, he abandoned the idea. I can't leave her homeless. With a light leap, Kyosuke left the mansion. As he was in midair, he raised his hand, releasing a shower of phoenix fire. Soon, the surrounding houses were ablaze due to the fire style. Who's there? A ninja quickly approached, clearly noticing the suspicious arsonist. The one who's going to take your life. Kyosuke's voice was cold as he fired a Chidori sharp spear that pierced the ninja's heart instantly. System prompt, killed a lower ninja from the Uzumaki clan, gained 50 points, futile struggle. Kyosuke coldly shook his head. His killing intent flared as his sword pointed toward a nearby group of incoming ninja. An enemy Jonin appeared. Lightning appeared faintly around him as Kyosuke instantly turned into a blur and dashed forward. As his chakra control improved, he had gradually combined two different teleportation jutsus. He stimulated his cells with lightning chakra while using the unique teleportation jutsu developed by Shishui. His speed was so fast it was jaw-dropping. Uchiha style, Chidori scatter flower. His self-created sword technique struck. The lightning bloomed like flowers among the enemies. Drops of crimson fell, and except for a lucky Jonin who barely escaped, the rest of the ninjas died instantly under Kyosuke's sword. Chakra is down by a third, I still need to save some for the Flying Thunder God technique. Knowing he couldn't keep wasting chakra, Kyosuke decided to challenge this Jonin using his sword art. Of course, he wouldn't go without auxiliary measures. Scarlet light suddenly appeared, and 3 dark Tomoe locked onto the enemy. Sharingan, activate. With a nimble flip, Kyosuke dodged the incoming sharp wind blades, slashed at the enemy with his sword, and predicted all of the enemy's possible evasive movements. You bastard, don't think I'll let you leave alive. The Uzumaki Jonin didn't dodge and easily blocked Kyosuke's full-powered sword strike with kunai. The difference in their physical strength was immediately evident. Close combat is still not enough. Kyosuke sighed inwardly, applying a bit more force. The blue chakra flowed over the entire blade. Chidori blade. The kunai shattered, and Kyosuke's sword left a gash on the Jonin's left shoulder. Though not a fatal blow, it was enough to hinder the enemy's mobility. If it had been an average ninja, they'd have been decapitated by now. Such a strong lightning-style technique, this person's strength is truly terrifying. The Uzumaki Jonin's face grew serious as he endured the excruciating pain and unleashed a powerful water-style jutsu. The attack wasn't that strong, but Kyosuke couldn't break through the water jutsu's blockade immediately. To make matters worse, a second Jonin-led squad arrived. After all, we are surrounded by enemies. Slowly sheathing his sword, Kyosuke looked at the Jonin who had barely survived. I'll let you live for one more day. Without waiting for the enemy to respond, he activated the Flying Thunder God technique and headed toward Madara's location. At that moment, the King of Dance was surrounded by enemies, his armor stained with blood, panting as he wielded his fan. When he saw Kyosuke arrive, Madara Uchiha frowned. You could have waited. It would have been easier for you to collect my corpse later. Hey, stop acting like a child. Grabbing him, the two of them appeared beside Hyuga Yaoi in the next second. Compared to the two disheveled Uchiha, Yaoi, with her Byakugan, could easily avoid attacks from all directions. In terms of mission completion, Kyosuke and Madara together couldn't compare to her individual contribution. Let's leave here first. After tonight's battle, the trio had a rough understanding of the strength of the hidden Whirlpool village. Without the Flying Thunder God technique, none of their squad could escape the siege. Uzumaki Ashina, that bastard, didn't expect him to have such power left behind. Madara Uchiha leaned against a wall, slowly recovering from the excessive chakra consumption. Quite normal. Kyosuke, lying nearby, spoke his thoughts. Uzumaki Ashina isn't an idiot. He wouldn't give everything up for the Senju. His lair definitely holds considerable power. What's our next move? Hyuga Yateway asked. After tonight's commotion, the enemy would certainly be on high alert. Infiltrating was no problem, but it would likely be impossible to cause as much chaos as today. We'll keep toying with them, Kyosuke said with a smile. If a direct confrontation isn't possible, then we'll go for assassinations, targeting only those of the Chunin rank or higher. Hey, you're trying to wipe out Uzumaki Ashina's bloodline. Madara Uchiha chuckled, not refusing the idea. Though arrogant, he wasn't so stubborn. Assassination was an expected tactic for ninjas, and in Madara's view, there was nothing more important than achieving their strategic goals. As long as Uzumaki Ashina doesn't return, the three of them would continue to torment the enemy, seeing who would end up more frustrated in the end. Let's recover quickly, and we'll strike again at dawn. Chapter 63, Except your mother, no one can make me feel this miserable at the front line, in the Uzumaki clan's camp. Outrageous. Uzumaki Ashina slammed the table, his eyes turning red, looking as though he had Uchiha blood. Next to him, Mito didn't even lift her eyelids. She was fully aware of the information in the report. A surprise attack on the rear forced the Uzumaki to retreat, and it must be said that the Uchiha's strategy was quite sound. Their execution was equally impressive. In fact, Mito never favored getting too close to the Senju clan. To her, getting involved in the Land of Fire's conflicts seemed unwise. Now, the Senjus were using them as allies, but once things went awry, the Uzumaki could end up in a very difficult situation. The Uchiha had been a pillar in the Land of Fire for 1,000 years, they were not an existence that could simply be eradicated. Although the war was not over, the Uzumaki had already tasted the bitterness of retaliation. With that brat's space-time ninjutsu, the clan members stationed at the rear could do nothing to stop him. Father, retreat, Mito suggested. Sighing deeply, Uzumaki Ashina finally spoke candidly. How I wish we could retreat, but we can't. To fail in our first external war would make the ninja world believe we're weak and easy to bully. It would bring endless trouble in the future. Uzumaki Ashina didn't say it aloud, but he believed the Senju clan's credibility was secure and would eventually become the Uzumaki's strongest ally. The sacrifices made now were all for the future generations of the Uzumaki clan. We can't retreat, Uzumaki Ashina decided firmly. He would soon research a weapon to turn the tide of the war. The chaos in the rear was largely due to that brat's space-time ninjutsu. If he could stop it, the crisis would immediately end. Give me a little more time, Ashina almost pleaded. Seeing her father in such a state, Mito couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. She couldn't find the words to comfort him. Sighing, she could only sigh deeply in response. In the blink of an eye, the unrest in Hidden Eddy village had lasted for an entire week. The enemy's unpredictable attacks had made life miserable for the stationed forces. In desperation, the forces had to expand their search radius in hopes of reaching any location in time. Although everyone knew this was just a temporary measure, it was all they could do. The destruction the enemy caused was still present, though the damage was slightly reduced. For instance, at this very moment, in broad daylight, 3 people openly attacked the village's largest hospital. Ninjutsu, Chidori Sharp Spear. With a 5-meter limit, it was enough for Kyosuke to become a great demolition expert. None of the 3 were proficient in earth style, so the demolition had to be done personally. In a week's time, the Uzumaki clan showed no intention of retreating. According to reports from the front, Uzumaki Ashina's attacks became more and more frantic, even putting the Hyuga clan on the defensive. In Kyosuke's words, they hadn't made the enemy feel enough pain yet. From the moment the frontline report arrived, the team decided to launch a round of indiscriminate attacks. The first target was the Hidden Eddy village hospital. Fire style, forbidden technique, the flame of Garuda. Compared to Kyosuke's smaller-scale attacks, Madara Uchiha was much more ruthless. He immediately unleashed his strongest S-class fire style, obliterating an entire hospital building. Such a killing intent. Kyosuke muttered, appearing on the rooftop to prepare for the incoming enemy forces. Suddenly, he saw a familiar figure fleeing through the window, clearly affected by the attack. It's him. The man escaping the building was the Uzumaki Jonin Kyosuke had fought a week earlier. Fate had led them to meet again under these circumstances. Pulling out a special kunai from his pouch, Kyosuke felt the need to greet his old enemy properly. The kunai shot out, aimed directly at the enemy Jonin. The man sidestepped to avoid the kunai attack, then quickly formed hand signs as a fierce gust of wind surged toward the incoming fire style, Great Fireball. A bunch of bastards, how dare you come here and cause trouble? Today, I'll make sure you leave unable to go anywhere. The man gritted his teeth and cursed. Is that so? Kyosuke's voice suddenly sounded from behind him. The sound of the Chidori crackled, and before the enemy could react, Kyosuke struck with a hand chop that pierced the man's heart. I told you, you can't escape. Having successfully claimed the man's points, Kyosuke stretched contently. The enemy is here. Hyuga Yaoi, who had been responsible for reconnaissance, appeared, her hand still stained with fresh blood. She was primarily in charge of reconnaissance, ensuring the team wouldn't fall victim to ambushes or surprise attacks. Additionally, she was scouting for the next attack location. Starting today, the team would launch a full-scale, relentless offensive. The target area, the entire Hidden village. Soon, the three of them used the Flying Thunder God technique to reach another coordinate. Several fire-style jutsu were unleashed, setting everything inside ablaze. Without hesitation, they moved on to the next location. With Yaoi's Byakugan aiding them, Kyosuke was able to avoid teleporting to enemy ambush points. If the number of enemies was small, they simply launched a decisive assault, completed their mission, and left immediately without hesitation. In just one day, they launched 2 attacks, causing damage that far surpassed the effects of an entire previous week. A few days later, when Uzumaki Ashina received the rear's battle damage report, he nearly spat out blood on the messenger's face. Kyosuke Uchiha. Clearly, he had directed his hatred primarily at Kyosuke. Without the Flying Thunder God, how could 3 young kids be causing such chaos? They even openly attacked ordinary villagers. The Uchiha were nothing more than a group of beasts in human skin. After smashing everything in sight, Ashina weakly collapsed onto the ground. Since Mido's mother passed away, he had never felt such exhaustion. When the princess with the bun hurried over, Ashina had already tidied himself up, regaining the dignity of a clan leader. Mido announced the ceasefire. Ignoring his ecstatic daughter, he had already begun to think about how to explain things to Senju Batsuma. The 2 powerful clans of the Land of Fire, the Uchiha, saw the Hidden village as their enemies, so they had no choice but to cling to the Senju clan's support. If the Land of Water attacked in the future, without external help, the Hidden village would be reduced to a wasteland. Such was the tragedy of small nations. Soon, the news of the Uzumaki clan's retreat spread to many factions. Naturally, the Uchiha clan celebrated. With the Uzumaki no longer a threat, they could now gather their forces to deal with the troublesome Senju. The operations behind enemy lines were a great success, and the returning team was highly praised. However, Elder Hiraki noticed that Kyosuke had mysteriously disappeared. Him? Madara Uchiha explained. I heard he's off looking for some kind of legendary weapon. Chapter 64, The Unexpected Appearance of the Dangerous Snake Woman in Rechi Cave. Cool jade fingers, cheeks aflame, enchanting eyes that play the game softly singing, hearts to claim, twining tongues that leave their stain. On the forest path, an intriguing little tune echoed, filling the air with a strange, uplifting melody. The villager riding the cart found it quite amusing, adding some novelty to their otherwise monotonous journey. On top of the cart shed, Kyosuke, chewing on a piece of dry grass, sighed. If it weren't for the Uchiha clan, I could have pursued a career as a singer. One day, when he tires of being a ninja, he could join the music industry, showing those villagers what real rap sounds like. He could be the first ninja idol. His personal interests: singing, dancing, rapping, and killing. Wait a second, maybe killing isn't exactly the best fit for an idol persona. Looking at the blue sky, Kyosuke took a deep breath, feeling a rare sense of relaxation. After crossing into the world of Naruto, his life had been filled with constant killing, and he had almost forgotten what normal life should feel like. During the critical moment when the Uzumaki clan's forces were migrating, and the Uchiha were gathering to face the Senju, Kyosuke leisurely made his way to the northernmost part of the Land of Fire. The journey to find the Kusanagi sword was proving to be much more difficult than he had anticipated. The map only provided a rough location, so to find the hidden cave entrance, he would have to explore it bit by bit. Fortunately, with shadow clones, Kyosuke didn't have to do the work himself. Speaking of which, shadow clones were the best way to slack off. Even someone like Naruto, who mastered the sexy jutsu, could be useful in certain situations. Cough. Cough. Kyosuke rolled over, spat out the dry grass in his mouth, and decided to take a nap before continuing. The cart driver was a local from a nearby village. He had gone out hunting and encountered a giant bear over 3 meters tall. If Kyosuke hadn't happened to pass by, the driver would have been killed by the bear. After talking with the driver, Kyosuke learned the information he needed. He was told that there was indeed a cave in the area, and it was considered a forbidden place by the villagers. The cave was located in an area where no animals could be seen for miles around. It was rumored that any living creature that entered was killed by some kind of monster. The village had once issued a request for help, but even powerful ninjas, seemingly like gods, had disappeared without a trace. Since then, the area had become a forbidden place, and no one dared to venture in. The cart driver advised him not to take the risk, but Kyosuke wasn't the type to be scared off by some old legends. In fact, he was now even more intrigued. As a storage site for the legendary Kusanagi sword, the mysterious cave was bound to have something extraordinary, or else it would be quite a disappointment. As for the danger? Well, sorry, but with the Flying Thunder God technique in his possession, there were very few things in the ninja world that could pose a real threat to him. Soon, the shadow clones sent back their memories, and they successfully found the exact location of the cave entrance. Thanks, old man. As soon as he finished speaking, Kyosuke vanished from the top of the cart shed. The driver stood alone, shivering as he looked at the empty roof. Before long, another eerie tale would surely be spreading around the village. A ghostly figure who sings inappropriate songs. At the entrance of the cave, Kyosuke immediately felt a tightening in his muscles. This is interesting, he thought, sensing an unusual threat nearby. Tightening his grip on the weapon at his waist, he stepped into the cave, feeling as if he were entering the mouth of some mysterious giant beast. Following his instincts, Kyosuke ventured deeper, only to realize that the cave was far larger than he had imagined. This vast space. There might be some kind of large summoning beast hidden here, he thought. As he pondered, he didn't notice the shadow quietly following him from above. What was strange was that the shadow seemed to float in the air. While Kyosuke was lost in thought, the shadow moved silently, drawing closer to him like a falling leaf. Hey, such a delicate little guy. The snake woman, Tegrahim said as she bared her sharp fangs, preparing to swallow the person below her whole. Just as she was about to strike, a sharp, screeching noise suddenly filled the entire cave. Kyosuke leaped into the air, drawing his Chidori blade, and with a flash of lightning, he slashed upward at the snake woman. Swish. Facing the incoming deadly strike, Tegrahim calmly raised her arm and, to Kyosuke's surprise, managed to block the Chidori blade with her flesh. The Chidori blade was said to be an unstoppable cutting technique, sharper than even wind-based jutsu at the same level. Even the legendary 7 ninja swords couldn't withstand its cutting power, but this snake woman, who appeared to have a humanoid form, was able to resist it with such remarkable skin hardness. Wait. A snake woman? Kyosuke suddenly realized something. This couldn't possibly be the Richi Cave, could it? The Richi Cave was a mysterious sage region, on par with Shikatsu Forest and Mount Mayabaku. The 3 sage regions, snakes, frogs, and slug, were each governed by different groups. The founder of the Richi Cave was a giant white sage snake who had lived since the era of Kaguya Otsutsuki. Everything that happened here would be heard by the white snake sage, a terrifyingly powerful being. If you weren't at the 6 paths level, you had to be at least an elite S-rank ninja to challenge such a presence. Dealing with Kyosuke now would be child's play. As for this snake woman in front of him, she was likely a high-ranking member of the Dragon Cave, comparable in status to the 2 sages of Mayabaku Mountain. Under the influence of his Sharingan, Kyosuke could feel the overwhelming chakra within her body, as if it was about to burst forth. The most troublesome part was that she could also use Sage Mode chakra, which was why her scales could resist his Chidori blade. While he was thinking, the snake woman swiftly evaded his blade, and without moving her body, her neck suddenly elongated. Die! She hissed, looking furious as she lunged at him. With the help of Sage Mode chakra, her attack tore into Kyosuke's body. But instead of blood spilling, only bright lightning flashed from his form. Lightning style, shadow clone technique. Ah! Tegrahim screamed in agony. Not only did she fail to catch him, but she also ended up chewing on a mouthful of lightning. Her anger grew to the breaking point. Suddenly, Kyosuke reappeared, and with full power, a Chidori thrust directly at her chest. Sage art, inorganic reanimation. Without any chakra fluctuations, the surrounding stone wall seemed to come alive, rapidly turning into a deadly trap that pierced him from every direction. Boom. Fortunately, that was another shadow clone. Bloodline of the Shinobi clan, Tegrahim said coldly, her body beginning to change in strange ways. Knowing time-space ninjutsu would be futile here. Because in the Richi Cave, escaping was impossible. At the cave entrance, Kyosuke's expression darkened slightly. It wasn't because his 2 shadow clones had been destroyed, but because he suddenly realized that he could no longer sense the spatial coordinates of the outside world. What did this mean? It meant he had already been separated from his original space. No one knew where the real Richi Cave was, but it was certainly not in the same dimension as the ninja world. Chapter 65, White Snake Sage, Ungrateful Indra, are you kidding me? Upon realizing he couldn't escape, Kyosuke immediately became a lot more obedient. Sage chakra is incredibly powerful, and learning it would make one reach the peak of strength instantly. Unfortunately, it's like nuclear energy. Without chakra and physical strength at the level of an Kage-level shinobi, the only result from attempting to use it would be death. As an artificial human, Mitsuki, who had mastered a weakened version of the Sage Mode through Orochimaru's cursed seal, found his body collapsing shortly after activating it. Orochimaru, with his mastery over clone technology, used all his resources to barely restore Mitsuki's body to its original state. The last time he had experienced such despair was when he had dealt with the terminally ill Kimimaro. Unless he used an Orochimaru version of the cursed seal, Kyosuke wouldn't be able to absorb natural energy in the short term. The snake lady who attacked him earlier, whose name was likely Tegrahim, was one of the three great leaders of the Richi Cave. Her real strength was hard to gauge, but it was clear she wasn't weak. Not to mention, just dealing with her jutsu, inorganic reanimation, would overwhelm Kyosuke. If possible, it would be best to avoid fighting and try to reach a peaceful resolution. In the worst-case scenario, maybe he could just give up the Kusanagi sword? Kyosuke used his shadow clones to move forward along the cave. Suddenly, an ancient voice echoed in his mind. "A curious little brat, come to me." As soon as the words were spoken, the surrounding environment rapidly began to shift. Kyosuke hadn't moved a step, but by the time the mist cleared, he found himself in a massive cave. The shadow clones that were in ambush disappeared, and the kunai with flying thunder god technique that he had left along the way had also vanished. At this moment, he had no way to solve the problem except to face the threat directly. Taking a deep breath, he scanned the cave and the group of young women present, eventually locking eyes with a giant white phosphorus snake seated on a high platform. "You filthy human brat." Someone glared at him. Tegrahim, a beautiful woman with green hair and a crown on her head, looked at him with disdain. Anyone would be surprised to know that under her human form, she actually had a snake's body. Having seen her in her true form, Kyosuke couldn't help but feel uncomfortable whenever he saw her in this form. In contrast, the other snake lady looked much more normal. "Enough noise," spoke a young-looking girl with long dark blue hair and a striking appearance. Despite her youth, the energy she radiated was far more deadly than the others. This was a Kikishimahime, a name given to her by the White Snake Sage. "White Snake Sage, we've brought the intruder here," the blue-haired snake lady said before stepping aside without even looking at Kyosuke. "Human." The White Snake Sage spoke. "What is it that brings you to my Richi Cave?" Kyosuke turned his head and was surprised to find that the towering white phosphorus snake was gone. Instead, on the high platform, there was an elderly woman leaning on a cane, staring coldly at him. The old woman, dressed in a white robe, smiled, but it sent a chilling sense of danger to Kyosuke, as though he were prey being eyed. Sticking to the principle of being honest and low-key, Kyosuke calmly spoke. "I came here following the map's instructions and didn't mean to intrude. Please forgive me." "Map?" "That's right." Kyosuke pulled out the troublesome treasure map from his clothes. Sensing the energy around him, he casually let go, and the map floated towards the old woman's hand. Observing this, Kyosuke noticed that compared to the toads of Mount Mayabaku, these snake ladies seemed more adept at utilizing external natural energy. "The Kusanagi sword," the old woman muttered, thinking for a moment. "Do we have something like that in our cave?" At that moment, the third snake lady, Tajutsuime, spoke up. "Report, White Snake Sage. 800 years ago, one of the Kusanagi swords did fall into our hands." "Oh, now I remember." The old woman recalled with a hint of nostalgia, adding. "I recall someone trying to steal it back then, didn't they?" "Yes, but they were personally repelled by you. Humphrey, an ungrateful little brat, trying to cause trouble in my domain. If it weren't for his father." The old woman suddenly went silent for a while before turning her gaze to Kyosuke. "The little brat back then couldn't take it, but now you, his descendant, have come to fulfill his wish?" "Ancestor?" Kyosuke hesitated before asking. "That little brat you mentioned. I think his name was Indra." Kyosuke nearly choked on his own breath. His current mood is probably similar to how Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji felt when they defeated Kakazu, only for him to claim he once battled the first Hokage. Whether it was true or not, it certainly sounded impressive. What a clueless Indra, White Snake Granny really knows how to make you act all high and mighty. Despite his chaotic thoughts, Kyosuke maintained a respectful demeanor. "No, that's not the case. I just happened to obtain the map from the land of Whirlpool." "Oh? Whirlpool? A branch of the ninja clan, one of Ashura's descendants." The old woman sneered. "That little brat doesn't have much charm." Now, another unpleasant Ashura appears. "You're the boss, so do as you please." Laughing at herself for a while, the old woman waved her hand lightly. When Kyosuke looked again, she was holding a long sword, sheathed, but it radiated an aura of antiquity. Its form was similar to Sasuke's sword, but this one seemed to carry the burden of time. Having caught Indra's interest, the sword must have some special power besides transmitting chakra. Do you want it? The white snake sage grinned. It's not impossible, but you should know, anyone who enters my Richie cave must pass a test. If you pass, we can negotiate, but if you fail, you'll have to choose one of my 3 daughters. And see which one you'd like to end up inside. Kyosuke blinked, carefully asking. What kind of test? Tegrahim, is that place still there, right? It is. Tegrahim replied. She stepped forward and handed Kyosuke a detailed map of the ninja world. 3 years ago, a group of people kidnapped children from this cave. Due to an agreement, we can't leave. Find the children, and this Kusanagi's sword is yours. After quickly explaining the mission, Tegrahim returned to the side, clearly uninterested in any further contact with him. She also handed him a scroll for a contract. Write your name, and you learn the trust of the children. Kyosuke obediently signed the contract. He knew he didn't have the option to refuse. Once you succeed, we will reverse summon you back. With that, Kyosuke suddenly found himself outside the Richie cave. Inside the cave, the white snake sage was deep in thought, using her powers to peer into the boy's future. Chapter 66, Peering into the Future, Kyosuke at 6 paths level? The rulers of the 3 great sage regions all possess uniquely powerful abilities. The toad sage can foresee the future, glimpsing certain events that are destined to happen. The white snake sage has a similar ability, but hers is more focused on specific targets. Whenever a human enters the Richie cave, she activates her power as a way of screening potential targets. Before Kyosuke left, the white snake sage had already activated her power, causing time to leap forward several decades. What she saw was a vast, desolate land, with a blood moon hanging in the sky. The eerie light illuminated the figure of a man holding a sage staff. 8 truth-seeking orbs floated quietly behind him as he stood in midair, gazing at the stars. The white snake sage was shocked. She never expected that the young boy could reach such a level. As someone who had witnessed the battle between the Otsutsuki brothers during the 6 Paths era, she knew what kind of destructive power they had. Indra and Ashura were incredibly strong, standing at the pinnacle of human power, but they were still far below their father. Kyosuke was the descendant of Indra, not even a host of the reincarnation chakra. How could he possibly awaken such a godlike form? Curious, the white snake sage decided to observe more closely. Although she could not see everything from the future through her limited control over time, she could still deduce some things based on the brief moments she saw. The blood moon. This doesn't look like the ninja world. His eyes. They seemed to contain some unusual transformation. What struck her the most was the vast field of corpses beneath the man's feet, as if the entire earth had been turned into a mountain of bodies. Kyosuke of the future stood atop this sea of blood and corpses, looking up at the stars. Looks like it's about time. A hoarse voice echoed as the entire land began to shake. With a snap, the future Kyosuke clasped his hands together and shouted. God. Earth explosion star. Thousands of years ago, to seal their mother Kaguya, the 6 Paths brothers created the moon. But in the future, Kyosuke was able to create 9 massive celestial bodies the size of the moon all by himself. The ground split open, the heavens cried out, and it felt as though the entire world trembled at his command. Have you seen enough? The sudden question left the white snake sage stunned. Were there still enemies around? She couldn't see anyone else on the shattered land. As she was processing this, she was shocked to see the man turn around and look directly at her. You. I'm asking if you've seen enough. How could you sense my presence? She was completely stunned. When peering through the river of time to view someone's past or future, it was like watching a movie. There was no interaction between the two. If she wanted, she could even freeze time. But now, the character in the movie had suddenly seen her and was asking if she had seen enough. It was ridiculous. Before she could respond, the future Kyosuke raised his hand, and the sage staff transformed into a blade that cleaved through the endless river of time. For the first time, the white snake sage felt the fear of death. Ah! A scream woke her from the illusion. She barely managed to prop herself up, as if still caught in the effects of her power. At the last moment, she had successfully broken the illusion, so the mysterious sword strike had no real effect on her. Feeling a sense of relief, she turned to her 3 daughters and saw them watching her in fear. Her snake head lowered, and she noticed a massive wound running across her body. She didn't feel any pain, as the structure of her serpent body was different from that of humans, especially since she was a white snake who had trained for thousands of years. However, it was unheard of for someone to injure her through the river of time. In theory, this should be impossible, unless the person also wielded time-based powers. This was the only way to explain how she had been exposed. A human couldn't possibly. Right, that eye of his. It's the power granted by Indra's bloodline. Damn Indra, I shouldn't have let you go so easily back then. Irritated for a moment, the White Snake Sage quickly regained her composure and began considering how to handle the Uchiha boy in the future. Even though she had been struck by a sword, she felt strangely happy. This boy's future achievements were so high that forming a connection now would surely make him a protector of the Richie Cave in the future. The ninja world wasn't safe, and she understood that better than anyone. That Otsutsuki who had narrowly escaped death back then, and Kaguya, who was still waiting for resurrection after thousands of years of silence. She knew the dangers that still lurked, such as the Toad and the Otsutsuki brothers secretly plotting behind the scenes. She was also fully aware of the disgusting slug of the Shikatsu forest and what it hid. The great battle from 1,000 years ago was just the beginning, the real threat had not yet come. The Six Paths brothers had plans in place. If they were unable to face the external dangers, they would reunite the Ten Tails or even release their mother Kaguya to fight. The White Snake Sage knew all of this. She also understood that, one day, war would come to the Richie Cave. If they weren't prepared, they would truly become a snake on the chopping block. Fortunately, he has already signed the scroll. He is technically a contract holder of the Richie Cave. She thought about it carefully and realized that simply having a contract might not be enough. Her vertical pupils scanned her three daughters, and a thought suddenly crossed her mind. Humans are sexual beings, and the strong often have many different partners. She was considering whether to offer her daughters to the boy. If one wasn't enough, then perhaps all three would suffice. Better to bear offspring. That way, the Richie Cave won't have any worries. The scenes in the time illusion had left a deep impression on her. In order to win the favor of the Uchiha boy, she was willing to give up even her daughters, who had served her for thousands of years. She wondered what Kyosuke would think if he knew all of this. At this moment, he was using the tools given by the White Snake Sage to search for the kidnapped children of the Richie Cave. By dripping the child blood onto the scroll, he would perform a reverse summoning to bring them back. Seems like it's not that difficult after all. Chapter 67, A Permanent Little Home for You on a Wooden Sailboat. Kyosuke leisurely savored grilled fish. Beside him, two shadow clones were hard at work. One fishing, the other grilling. Each diligently fulfilling their roles. This division of labor made it evident why Kyosuke's shadow clone technique had advanced so quickly in just a year. Idiot, watch out for fish bones choking you, grumbled the fishing clone. As a clone, he couldn't enjoy the grilled fish. By the time the jutsu was dispelled and the memories returned to the original, the fish would already be gone. Anyone would complain in his shoes. Don't be so mean. Spitting out a fishbone, Kyosuke chuckled. If someone saw me arguing with my clones, they'd think I was crazy. Ha! Sneered the grilling clone. Stop joking around. If you've got guts, let's switch. You grill, I eat. What's the difference? Humphrey, it's like watching adult content versus experiencing it firsthand. The memories might be similar, but the experience is completely different. Why is a shadow clone being so chatty? Just do your work or I'll make you pull overtime later. At this, the grilling clone snapped. Kid, do you think I can't handle you? He stood by the fire and made a move as if to sit on the hot grill. The pain of a clone transfers to the original, you know. I'm ready to roast my rear if it means roasting you along with me. Wait. Kyosuke quickly surrendered. He couldn't guarantee that the clone wouldn't follow through with the threat. Even if he dispelled the jutsu, the painful memory would pass on to the next clone. There would be no escape. Left with no choice, Kyosuke had to compromise. The three of them took turns eating grilled fish. Getting threatened by my own clone. What is my life even? Kyosuke sighed while holding his fishing rod. Ugh. Spitting out another fishbone, Clone 2 sneered. Instead of complaining, why not think about how to finish the mission? What about it? Are you stupid? Clone 2 crossed his legs and impatiently explained. We already gathered intel. The child was kidnapped by a group of hunters who supply gladiators for wealthy clients. And then? You don't even bother thinking anymore, do you? Clone 2 sighed. Remember Sasuke's Shinden, the Book of Sunrise? That finale with the amazing animation? Ah, little Chino. Of course, I remember. So cute. Idiot. We're heading to a place like that underground arena. As Clone 2 explained, Clone 3, who still hadn't tasted the grilled fish, chimed in. Wait, does that mean we'll meet Chino? Shut up, you moron. Clone 2 snapped. It's the Warring States era. There is no Chino. What a shame. While the two clones bickered, Kyosuke managed to reel in another fish. Why bother thinking when he had clones? Clone 2 would figure it out, and Kyosuke would inherit the solution. Come to think of it, Clone 2 was exceptional. Proactive and smart. Rubbing his chin, Kyosuke had an idea. What if he preserved Clone 2? Not permanently, but by creating a system where this particular personality could always be summoned when he performed the shadow clone technique. This way, they could share the same memories and abilities, but Clone 2 could handle all the intellectual labor while Kyosuke reaped the results. What a brilliant plan. It would save effort, improve the technique, and pave the way for mastering the multi-shadow clone jutsu. What are you doing? Clone 2 glared at Kyosuke, realizing for the first time how annoying his original self could be. Handsome, yes, but infuriatingly so. Giving you a permanent little home. Kyosuke replied, dispelling the quieter Clone 3. What's going on? Clone 3 asked before vanishing with a puff of smoke. Moments later, he reappeared in the same spot. Clone 2 widened his eyes, circling the revived Clone 3. Huh. That's clever. Then it hit him. Turning to Kyosuke, Clone 2 growled. You jerk. You're trying to make me work forever, aren't you? Bingo. No prize, though. Stop with those ancient jokes already. Is it my turn for grilled fish now? Clone 3 asked meekly. Shut up. After sending Clone 3 off to eat, Kyosuke and Clone 2 sat down to discuss their next steps. From now on, this will be our way of brainstorming. We're the same person, but once split, small differences in thought emerge. That makes it perfect for tackling problems from different angles. Clone 2's efficient, sharp demeanor resembled that of a corporate secretary to a tyrannical CEO. Amazing, amazing. Clap, clap, clap. Kyosuke applauded. Awesome. Clone 3 joined in, fish still in his mouth. Ignoring their antics, Clone 2 continued. The situation there is complex. It's likely tied to a massive web of interests. For now, I suggest avoiding direct confrontation. Using the Flying Thunder God technique would draw too much attention. Clone 2's point was clear. One wrong move could bring unnecessary trouble to the Uchiha clan, which was already stretched thin against the Senju. Plus, we might profit from this. Clone 2 added, recalling the arena's rules, winners could claim complete control over the losers. Who knows? They might even acquire some rare KK Genkai users. And as for money, even the Akatsuki, who aimed to destroy the world, needed funds. Kyosuke would need wealth to support future plans like moving to the moon and building a settlement. Robbing the arena outright wasn't an option. Look out, Kyajuku Uchiha is here to snatch all the supplies. Run for your lives. Just imagining it made Kyosuke cringe. With that, their first three-way brainstorming session concluded. Soon, their little boat reached the shore. Ignoring the boatman's odd look, Kyosuke leisurely strolled toward the island. On the surface, the island appeared to be a tourist paradise, but in reality, it was one of the largest underground trading hubs in the ninja world. Ninja gladiatorial fights were just a small part. Human trafficking and smuggling of contraband were the real business. Chapter 68, Have you ever been kicked at the speed of light? Ganjutsu, Sharingan. With the illusion technique clearing his way, Kyosuke entered the fighting arena without any hindrance. Go for it. Take him down. Give it your all. I placed a big bet on you. Kill him. Destroy your opponent. The noisy environment made Kyosuke feel a bit uncomfortable. While the outside world was engulfed in war, with people struggling between life and death, it was surprising to see that some people here found amusement in watching others fight to the death. After a brief moment of silence, Kyosuke approached the backstage manager and donned his long-forgotten Ana mask. Upon recognizing him as the infamous demon-faced Ashura of the Uchiha clan, the organizers immediately erupted with excitement. Sir, I've heard that the demon-faced Ashura of Uchiha has a unique lightning-style technique. The cautious manager said, trying to verify Kyosuke's identity. ZZ. The sound of crackling electricity filled the air as Kyosuke unsheathed his weapon and turned to face the guards who were rushing in to investigate. He activated the teleportation jutsu, and the lightning blade sliced through one guard's neck. By the time he turned to attack the second guard, blood began to spurt from the first man's wound. That's enough, sir. The manager attempted to stop the fight. However, Kyosuke, now red with bloodlust, no longer paid attention to anyone. His years of battlefield experience had deeply impacted him. Whether he admitted it or not, Kyosuke had become accustomed to taking lives. Killing? It had become as natural as eating or sleeping. With his Sharingan locked onto every move of his enemy, Kyosuke continuously swung his Chidori blade, trying to limit the opponent's ability to dodge. The space inside the room was small, and the two were so close that there was no opportunity to use ninjutsu. Life and death could be decided in an instant, and this intense feeling of being on the edge was something Kyosuke found thrilling. Stop immediately. The manager's face had darkened completely. Kyosuke continued to press forward. His opponent's taijutsu was impressive, even awe-inspiring, but it wasn't enough to dampen his rising bloodlust. Seeing that he couldn't win quickly, Kyosuke gritted his teeth, and a surge of electricity erupted from his body. Chidori stream. Caught off guard, his enemy was immediately struck by the lightning chakra, causing his movements to stiffen. Seizing the opportunity, Kyosuke used his chakra to charge forward, his blade piercing the man's heart. "You bastard, didn't you hear me telling you to stop?" the manager shouted angrily. Both guards were highly skilled. It was surprising that one had been killed by a careless move, and the other had been struck dead while unable to use ninjutsu. The manager, now fuming with anger, couldn't contain his frustration. No matter how infamous the demon-faced Ashura of the Uchiha clan was, here, only he had the final say. "Ryota." The man seemed to be calling someone. "Yo, boss, running into trouble?" A mocking voice followed. Kyosuke then sensed something speeding toward him at high speed. The speed was so fast that even his Sharingan couldn't keep up. Boom. He barely managed to block it, but the kick sent him flying 4 or 5 meters, crashing into the wall before he could stabilize himself. Such speed. The opponent had used some sort of explosive ability that exceeded even his teleportation jutsu. Today had certainly opened his eyes. "Stop it." The manager frowned and asked. "You didn't come here to uphold justice, did you?" "Of course not." After calming down, Kyosuke shook his head and spoke. "I need to secure a spot for the fight. Normally, entering the tournament required going through complex procedures, including identity verification and proof of assets. If someone lost without being able to pay, the organizers would have to cover the costs. However, with the reputation of the demon-faced Ashura, Kyosuke was able to skip all the troublesome steps. "Welcome aboard." The manager immediately changed his tone, smiling broadly. He even waved to signal the extremely fast man to leave. "TCH, so boring." The man shook his head and threw a provocative look at Kyosuke before leaving the office. Seeing this, the manager smiled and explained. "Ryota is just like that. Please don't mind him, sir." "Who is he?" Kyosuke asked, trying to learn more about his opponent's abilities. That speed was almost like teleportation, and simple teleportation jutsu couldn't explain it. "Ah." The manager thought for a moment before deciding to speak the truth. "Ryota is a ninja with a rare KK Genkai. By the way, there are many KK Genkai warriors here. Sir, please don't underestimate the power of the underground world." Kyosuke immediately thought of a special term. Could Ryota be a user of the swift release? "Ah, it seems you really have sharp eyes, sir." The manager confirmed with a nod. "That's right, Ryota possesses the swift release. Swift release, an ability that allows the user to unleash incredible speed. Some even said this person was capable of moving at near light speed. Whether that was true or not was impossible to verify. Kyosuke felt that this trip hadn't been in vain upon encountering a swift release user in the underground arena. "Sir?" the manager asked with a smile. "What kind of fighting permit do you need?" A fighting permit referred to the gladiator who would participate in the battle. The losing side would lose their fighting permit in addition to their bet. Kyosuke didn't have one, but he could use himself as his own fighting permit. This name sounds strange. He muttered to himself. Soon, he completed the necessary procedures to enter the tournament. As for the deposit, that wasn't an issue for Kyosuke, who had just finished a successful raid in the land of whirlpools. Thanks to the generous contributions of Uzumaki Ashina, his participation would surely influence the arena's profits. Considering the mutual benefits, Kyosuke didn't hide his true purpose. A newly captured serpent-summoning beast? The manager thought for a moment before replying. "Don't worry, I'll notify you as soon as we have news." The tracking scales given to him by the White Snake Sage could only locate the general area. This island was so complicated that it was impossible to search every corner. Rather than searching blindly, Kyosuke preferred to rely on the local manager's help. A win-win situation. As it turned out, Kyosuke had made the right decision. After enjoying a meal at a local BBQ restaurant, the manager's message came through. The kidnapper had been found, and an afternoon battle was already arranged. If Kyosuke won, he would naturally be able to take the summoned beast with him. Chapter 69, Are You a Child? After a satisfying afternoon of eating and shopping, Kyosuke finally returned to the battle arena. His upcoming fight was not only about retrieving the child from the Rishi cave, but also about testing his skills against other ninjas. Perhaps, he could even recruit a few talented KK Genkai ninjas. In the end, even if he didn't use them himself, sending them to Yaoi for experimentation would be a great option. Make full use of everything. Kyosuke thought. A single person's strength is always limited, but when you're lying on the operating table, perhaps thousands or even millions of you could emerge. Kyosuke's ideas were grand, but Yaoi's abilities were still insufficient. Cell cloning was an extremely advanced technique, and even if one were to copy it precisely from the data, it would take a long time to perfect. She was still figuring out cell transplantation. Scientific research really needs assistance. Kyosuke mused. Yaoi's abilities are impressive, and it shouldn't be a problem for her to cultivate loyal subordinates within the clan. With the temptation of setting free from the caged bird seal, I'm sure no branch family members will refuse her offer. Hirei focused on the arena, where he could hear the announcer passionately introducing him. He is the greatest genius of the Uchiha clan, the Rakshasa who strikes fear into all enemies. The one who drove the three major clans to disgraceful retreats, the creator of the bloody massacre night in the land of the whirlpool. His talent is unparalleled, and his space-time ninjutsu is unfathomable. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome this legendary Uchiha Rakshasa with the loudest applause. With a simple teleportation jutsu, Kyosuke, wearing a mask, appeared in the arena. Immediately, the applause in the crowd surged again. Uchiha! 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 In truth, Kyosuke wanted to interact with the audience and make a note of the top-tier rich people in attendance, in case he could recruit them later. However, considering his less-than-stellar reputation, he decided to let the opportunity pass. It's more important to focus on the child. He reminded himself. The announcer was now introducing another major sponsor, along with the rare summoning beast card. A talking summoning beast is indeed rare. Kyosuke nodded. He wasn't surprised that someone would dare to kidnap a child from the Richie cave. When there's enough profit at stake, people wouldn't hesitate to steal even something like Kaguya's undergarments, if they could reach the moon. Boom. A muffled sound from the opposite passage drew everyone's attention, including Kyosuke's. His face shifted slightly. It seemed that the child was a bit larger than he had expected. A few seconds later, when a huge snake head broke through the protective wall and appeared amidst the astonished cries of the audience, Kyosuke's jaw nearly hit the floor. Its size couldn't rival Gamabunta, but its length was comparable to a large truck from Kyosuke's past life. If it stood upright, it could easily reach 6 or 7 meters tall. Damn it, Togreheim, you call this a child? Kyosuke grumbled. Meanwhile, the giant purple-skinned snake sniffed the air, sensing a familiar aura. It blinked its large eyes in confusion. Why did the human before it smell like Sister Togreheim? Could it be that someone had sent this person to rescue it? The snake was quite intelligent and quickly pieced together the truth. Kyosuke suddenly asked in a deep voice. Are you a child? The giant snake head swayed up and down, deciding to cooperate with the human. How old are you? 8 years old. An 8-year-old child, yet towering at nearly 10 meters. Perfectly reasonable. After a brief moment of silence, Kyosuke decided to stick to the rules and win the match through sheer strength. Let's finish this match first. He instructed the small purple snake, signaling it not to look like it was just there for the taking. That would make others suspect they were rigging the match. Determined to make a substantial profit, Kyosuke waved his hand, putting in 5 million ryo. Almost all the money he had earned from his recent plundering. Although it seemed like a lot, in a room full of rich people, it wasn't that remarkable. Of course, if he managed to win 5 consecutive matches, the prize money would become an astronomical sum. No matter the initial investment, the returns would continue to multiply. Kyosuke suspected the organizers would send in strong opponents to stop him, but when he defeated them, not only would he earn money, but he could also claim their cards. The cards would be more accurately called slaves. These people had cursed seals implanted in their body, with no chance of rebellion. Otherwise, who would risk their lives to please these wealthy people? Roar. The small purple snake let out a loud roar and charged at Kyosuke. It was like a large truck speeding straight towards you on the highway. An ordinary person might be paralyzed with fear, but for Kyosuke, the speed was still too slow. After all, summoning beasts were more suited for battlefields, not for intense personal combat. The legendary Sannin earned their fame largely due to their performance on the battlefield, where summoning beasts played a crucial role. Such a pity. In front of the Uchiha, everything is but an illusion. Kyosuke's eyes narrowed slightly, and 3 black tomoe appeared in his Sharingan. At nearly the same moment, the small purple snake's eyes also changed, matching his pattern. Ganjutsu, Sharingan. Boom. The giant snake's massive body crashed to the ground, and Kyosuke didn't even budge, his expression calm and unfazed, prompting another round of excited cheers from the crowd. Uchiha. The name was almost synonymous with Ganjutsu. Though the scene was certainly dramatic, upon closer reflection, it seemed entirely reasonable. Except for that rich man who had worked so hard to acquire the small purple snake. You bastard. The portly man angrily pushed the woman in his arms aside, hastily pulling up his pants and storming onto the stage. Don't think you'll leave alive. I'll make you regret it in the next round. Go, bring that beast here. Tell it that if it kills the opponent, I'll grant it freedom. The wealthy man was furious and decided to use his trump card. Meanwhile, Kyosuke wasn't bothered by his opponent's display. He was still casually chatting with the small purple snake. Don't rush. I'll take you home once I'm done here. Thank you, Kyosuke-sama. It's nothing. By the way, what's your name? My name is Manda. Huh? Kyosuke stared at the large-eyed, obedient-looking giant snake, unable to reconcile it with the one that was always demanding to eat people in the future. Now that he had saved the small Manda, it was unlikely it would grow up to be as violent as its future self. He smiled, feeling good about doing a good deed. As he watched Manda leave, Kyosuke suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of threat. Chapter 70, The User of the Eight Inner Gates. If the little Manda gave him the feeling of a large truck, then the next person to appear felt like a giant meteorite several kilometers in diameter. No place to escape, no place to hide. No matter how much you resist, you will only turn into dust under the impact. In the dark passage, a tall man in a blue training outfit, his body covered in muscles, stepped forward. Compared to the sneaky ninjas, he gave more of a samurai vibe. He came to a stop in front of Kyosuke, eyeing him indifferently, and slowly spoke, "If I kill you, my boss promised to give me my freedom. Sang. That's the name of the one who will take your life, remember it well." Such confidence. Kyosuke smirked, not even bothering to reply. Even Senju Hashirama wouldn't speak to him like that. What makes you think you're special? The next moment, the gladiator named Sang proved where his confidence came from. A green energy aura surrounded him, and the veins on his forehead bulged. The man was so strong that his chakra visibly extended outside his body. No, wait. Kyosuke instinctively activated his Sharingan and realized that the green energy wrapping the man wasn't chakra, but something else. It was like the steam people emit after intense exercise. Yes, the green energy swirling around him was not chakra, but rather the steam emitted from his body, a sign of the intense power he was channeling. With his hair standing up like a scion and the intense green steam, a term suddenly popped into Kyosuke's mind. The Eight Gates. The man was using the forbidden technique, the Eight Gates. This forbidden technique has existed since ancient times. Madara Uchiha mentioned to Might Guy that he had heard of someone who could fight using crimson steam. But Madara had never seen it in person. The fact that it had spread to Hidden Lee Village indicated that there had always been practitioners of the Eight Gates in the ninja world, and Kyosuke never expected to encounter it today. Looking at the man's pained expression, he estimated that the man's gate level wasn't too high. If it doesn't exceed the fifth gate, defeating him should not be difficult. Kid, don't think you can continue to be so relaxed. I'm really strong. Fifth gate, the gate of limit, open. Green steam surged exponentially, and the man's exposed skin turned red, as if he was being boiled alive. The man instantly closed the distance and struck with a punch, creating a wind so sharp that it almost sliced through Kyosuke's skin. He was so fast that the air currents from his movements overturned the ground beneath him. A terrifying physical warrior. It's over. Sang knew there was no way for Kyosuke to dodge anymore. But his decisive strike directly pierced through Kyosuke's body. Huh? An afterimage? The man's pupils shook as he realized that his opponent's reaction speed was astonishing. Staring into those crimson eyes, Sang took a deep breath. He had now witnessed the power of the Uchiha. As for the Sharingan's Genjutsu, inside his body, chakra was crashing and clashing like a boiling volcano. There was no force that could trap him in Genjutsu. This was true. In the moment their eyes met, Kyosuke attempted to use Genjutsu to control him. However, his Genjutsu was nowhere near strong enough to control such a powerful foe. Genjutsu doesn't work, and I can't face you in Taijutsu. Then let's see who is faster. The previous afterimage was a high-level application of Shishui's style teleportation jutsu. Having recently upgraded to level 6, Kyosuke had finally mastered it. This technique allows the creation of near-substantial afterimage clones. The principle was similar to Goku's vanishing technique from Dragon Ball. Kyosuke's most powerful application of the technique was his constant high-speed teleportation, overwhelming his enemies with impossible-to-predict movements. Against such a powerful and fast opponent, using shadow clones would only waste chakra. If he wanted to win, he'd have to either defeat him head-on or hold out until the enemy's chakra ran out. The Eight Gates works by unlocking the chakra pathways within the body, granting temporary but immense power. The extent of the power boost varies depending on the individual's base chakra. Might Dewey opened the Gate of Death and could barely defeat 4 of the Hidden Mist's 7 ninja swordsmen. His son, Might Guy, opened the same gate and nearly defeated the 6 paths of Madara. The gap between the two was very obvious. From Kyosuke's observations, the man named Sang had far greater base strength than Might Dewey. He may not be at Guy's level, but he was still a terrifying martial artist. If I can defeat him, the 8 gates will be mine. Kyosuke thought, his heart heating up. Chakra gathered, then exploded violently. In an instant, over 20 afterimages of teleportation jutsu appeared. The afterimages not only confused the enemy but also allowed Kyosuke to strike with pure taijutsu attacks. While it might not work against an opponent who is several levels stronger, it was perfect for grinding down weaker foes and stalling for time. Just like the current battle, Sand, after opening the fifth gate, rampaged through the area like an ancient beast, causing constant explosions wherever he went. But he couldn't even touch the hem of Kyosuke's clothes. Without the aid of the Sharingan, Sand couldn't tell where Kyosuke's real body was. Thus, no matter how strong his taijutsu was, he could only keep guessing. One miss, then two. When he charged at the third afterimage, Kyosuke could easily track his movements. He continued to split his afterimages in different places, keeping his opponent distracted. A very underhanded way to fight. Fortunately, both were fast enough that no one else could figure out what was going on. Kyosuke's reputation as Uchiha Rakshasa remained intact. Ha! Bastard! Are you even a man? Don't run if you've got the guts! Sand yelled angrily. Sorry, I'm just 10 years old, a naive little boy. I must have let you down, right? Kyosuke gave a sly smile, fully embracing the spirit of crushing his opponent mentally. Not only did he wear them down physically, but he also aimed to break them mentally. If either side made a mistake, the advantage could quickly switch. Don't forget, besides regular afterimages, Kyosuke also mastered the Flying Thunder God technique. After several minutes of this chaotic chase, the area was already littered with his special kunai. He was just waiting for the moment his enemy exhausted himself. The chase lasted about 3 minutes, and finally, Sand couldn't keep going. At the moment when his chakra began to weaken, Kyosuke instantly appeared in front of his opponent, pressing his weapon forcefully against the man's chest. You've lost. Yeah, I lost. Sand lowered his head, the green steam surrounding him gradually dissipating. To the victor go the spoils. Once defeated, he had to accept his fate. If it weren't for his opponent showing mercy, he would have already been pierced through the heart by now. The grace of not being killed was a great favor, and in some ways, Kyosuke was his savior. Following such a powerful individual might not be such a bad thing after all. This was the thought that crossed Sand's mind. Chapter 71, The Visitive Monk Jigen. Defeating the opponent meant that Sanfeng would be bound to him, serving as his personal pawn in future battles, effectively a combat slave. However, Kyosuke didn't want to make him do anything, and this person wasn't valuable enough to be sent to the experimental table. Leave behind the method to practice the 8 inner gates, and I can give you the greatest amount of freedom. The greatest amount of freedom meant not restricting the opponent's actions most of the time. Unless it was a particularly critical moment, you could do whatever you liked as long as you didn't cause trouble to the Uchiha clan. Such conditions were like divine mercy for someone who had been locked in a cell, with every move restricted. Afraid that Kyosuke would go back on his word, Sand quickly nodded in agreement, ready to return and transcribe the training method of the 8 inner gates, while also summarizing his own experiences. At this moment, he was completely different from the person who had sworn to kill Kyosuke earlier. Kyosuke himself didn't particularly care. The man was simply seeking a way to survive. Even ants cling to life, let alone a living person like the Sand. Of course, if Kyosuke had been the one using the 8 inner gates, this battle wouldn't have stopped at the 5th gate. If the roles were reversed, he would have made sure to show just what cruelty meant. After 2 consecutive high-level battles, the atmosphere at the scene had reached its breaking point. The organizers had initially planned to stop Kyosuke's battles, but after thinking it over, they decided it was better to keep him around. After all, a bit of financial loss was nothing. The reputation he was leaving behind here was far more valuable than mere wealth. As long as he could come back a few more times, the organizers were confident they would earn 10 or even 100 times that amount. Considering this, the organizers simply gave up on sending powerful figures to stop him. The arena had been around for over 100 years, and behind it hid countless dark secrets. Sand was strong, but far from the strongest. If someone wanted to target Kyosuke, the organizers could immediately send out even stronger individuals. Some could surpass Kyosuke in speed, others in ninjutsu proficiency. There were even formidable dojutsu users, whose ganjutsu could make even the 3 Tomoe Sharingan, forcing it into submission. If such individuals took turns fighting, no matter how strong Kyosuke was, he would eventually meet a bitter defeat. Forget it. Let the big shots do as they please. The organizer chuckled and stood up to leave. With no more interference, Kyosuke easily won the next 3 matches. Incredible, he really defeated 5 top gladiators in a row. Now, let's give a warm welcome to our new king. Oh. Kyosuke paid no attention to the fervent applause, walking away with his head held high, leaving the crowd captivated by his lingering presence. Time to collect the payment. He had no fear of others backing out on their payments. If they did, he would mobilize his forces and wipe the island off the map after the war was over. He gave that foolish organizer a piece of his mind. Kyosuke then went to calm down the uneasy little snake, promising to take it home soon. Next, he was led by the attendant to the organizer's office. As he entered, he was greeted with the organizer's warm and enthusiastic smile. There was no trace of the previous plan to completely defeat him in the arena. "You're here," the organizer said warmly as he pulled him in. "Your deserved payment is ready, and I guarantee not a single penny will be missing. Mr. Kyosuke, if you ever have time, feel free to visit us again. Many spectators are eager to see your return. I believe that the Senju will soon be defeated, and the glory of the Fire Country will belong solely to the Uchiha." It was clear the organizer was trying to flatter him. He was probably afraid that Kyosuke would leave and never come back. It could be said that if Kyosuke agreed, the organizer would definitely offer him a generous reward. However, Kyosuke was completely indifferent to the organizer's feelings, focused solely on his own objectives. Noticing the young man's gaze, the organizer smiled apologetically and pointed to the handsome monk standing nearby, whose age was indeterminate. "Master Jigen just happened to pass by. Upon hearing you were here, he asked me to introduce him." The monk wore a white hori, his hair gathered at the top of his head, and a long braid at the back. His gaze was indifferent, with the Roman numeral 4 tattooed under his left eye, giving him an air of mystery. Using chakra to forcibly control his heartbeat, he revealed no sign of nervousness. Kyosuke turned to face him, looking at the monk as if he were a stranger. "I see. May I ask what business master has with me?" The monk's gaze remained indifferent, and his voice was cold and emotionless. "I am here to save you." "Save me?" Kyosuke tried to remain calm, showing just the right amount of disdain. In reality, every nerve in his body screamed for him to run, to flee at all costs. But he suppressed his instincts, holding them back with extraordinary self-control. "Yes." The monk nodded and said calmly. "Your brilliance is too overwhelming. Danger is gradually closing in on you. Without my help, you have a high chance of not escaping this calamity." By this point in the conversation, Kyosuke had nearly regained his composure. He knew the monk's physical condition was quite poor, and it was unlikely he would take action against someone as insignificant as Kyosuke. Since there was no reason for a battle, they might as well talk about the so-called threat. Unfortunately, no matter how he inquired, the monk remained silent, clearly withholding information. "I've warned many others with the same words," he implied. "Those who didn't listen are now dead." In fact, if Kyosuke hadn't known the monk's identity, he might have thought he was just another crazy person. The monk, Jigen, was originally a monk from the Fire Country, living in the ancient times thousands of years ago. In that era, 2 members of the Otsutsuki clan came to Earth to plant the God Tree, intending to absorb the life force of the entire planet. However, the Otsutsuki servant, unwilling to become nourishment for the tree, attacked their superior, severely wounding him. At that moment, monk Jigen happened to pass by. The wounded Otsutsuki shrank its form and parasitized him to survive. With the Otsutsuki's power, Jigen managed to survive for thousands of years. Of course, the being controlling him was no longer the traveling monk. Later, the monk began a long process of healing, but due to the severity of his injuries, he could only wait for a suitable host to reincarnate into. This wait lasted for 1,000 years. As for the Otsutsuki servant who had successfully rebelled, she planted the God Tree on Earth. However, she didn't absorb humans but instead fell in love with a man. Unfortunately, in the end, she was sealed by her 2 sons, suffering a fate even worse than that of the monk. This servant who had harmed the monk was none other than Kaguya Otsutsuki, the mother of Heigoromo, the sage of 6 paths. And within the monk's body was the terrifying being Kyosuke had always feared. The Otsutsuki Ishiki. Chapter 72, Acquiring the Kusanagi Sword. Kyosuke silently stared at the monk before him for a long time before suddenly asking. "Forget threats for now, what exactly do you want from me?" He almost wanted to add. "Should I help you clean out your ears?" A shrunken Ishiki Otsutsuki, using his eye technique Sukuna Hikona, had parasitized the monk's hair. Once a dignified Otsutsuki, whose status surpassed even Kaguya's, he was now reduced to spending his days surrounded by earwax. The thought was honestly quite pitiful. At first, Kyosuke had been wary, but now he could see through that this guy is strong on the outside and weak on inside. Sure, he could erupt with a power that temporarily overshadowed the entire ninja world, but that only lasted a few minutes before fizzling out. Without a suitable vessel to reincarnate into, the Otsutsuki would face true death. Knowing this, Kyosuke realized he had nothing to fear. Even if he publicly exposed the monk's identity, Jigen, the monk, would have no choice but to flee in disgrace unless it was a life-or-death situation. With this understanding, Kyosuke wasn't intimidated at all. In response to Kyosuke's inquiry, Jigen spoke calmly, "Become my ally, and I will grant you eternal life." "Eternal life?" Kyosuke sneered mockingly, pretending not to understand. By eating vegetarian and chanting with you, master? Of course not. The monk replied, shaking his head with great patience. Having lived for thousands of years, he had encountered countless people and events. His once proud sharpness was now deeply tempered. A few casual remarks weren't enough to anger him. I'll take my leave so you can talk in peace. The host excused himself wisely, knowing better than to pry into matters unrelated to his monetary dealings with Jigen. Eternal life? Ha, what a joke. Promising freedom for every slave sounded just as hollow. In reality, no one had ever left his clutches alive. Once the host departed, Jigen began explaining the existence of the chakra fruit. He withheld specific methods but promised that once the fruit was obtained in the future, Kyosuke could share in its bounty. Provided he became Jigen's ally. Take your time deciding. Jigen said, rising and glancing toward the host's retreating figure. But make it quick. Threats are already closing in around you. Kyosuke scoffed inwardly. Do I look like someone who scares easily? Retracting his gaze, Kyosuke realized the monk had vanished without a trace. Playing tricks again. Mimicking the monk, Kyosuke used space-time ninjutsu to leave the room. In the lounge, Sanji had written down the 8 inner gates training methods and summarized key precautions based on his experience. Sir, it's yours. He understood very well that identity would change with one's position. Good. Kyosuke nodded, pulling a letter from his pocket and handing it to him. Deliver this for me. From now on, stay within the Hyuga clan's territory. The letter was addressed to Yaoi Hyuga, roughly outlining the presence of a certain man as a precaution for her safety. Sand wanted the freedom, and Kyosuke agreed to give it to him, but it would be a big mistake to think that he could completely let go. At least he should try his best to play his due role, such as running errands and killing people for Hyuga Yaoi. After dismissing the taijutsu expert, Kyosuke quickly found the long-waiting young snake Manda. Using a summoning scroll, he absorbed the snake's blood, knowing that reverse summoning would soon take him to Richie Cave. Glancing back at the hidden island, Kyosuke felt a tinge of sentiment. The secrets of the 8 inner gates, swift release. Who knows what other powers lie hidden here? The appearance of Jigen further reinforced Kyosuke's awareness of constant danger. Patting the papers in his pocket, Kyosuke resolved to begin training in the 8 inner gates formation as soon as possible. Until he reached the 6 paths level, this technique would significantly enhance his strength. Although the training was grueling and often took decades of hard work, even unlocking the first few gates would provide a considerable chakra boost. Still, this trip was worth it. With a smile, Kyosuke disappeared from the island. Rechi Cave sister Togreheim Kami, I'm back. The young snake lay contentedly on the ground, its eyes squinting in delight despite being berated by Togreheim. As for Kyosuke, he had obtained the Kusanagi sword preserved in Rechi Cave. ZZ. Blinding lightning illuminated the dark cave like daylight. Perfect conductivity. It lives up to its name as a legendary weapon. Kyosuke remarked, clearly pleased. Previously, achieving the same effect required 3 to 4 times as much chakra. Now, just a tiny activation of lightning-style chakra turned the sword into a devastating Chidori blade. He swung the blade lightly at a nearby boulder, which split cleanly in 2 without any resistance. Incredible sharpness. Ordinary kunai couldn't withstand its slashes. Armed with the Kusanagi sword, Kyosuke's sword dart capabilities skyrocketed. Facing the Senju clan would now be far easier. That's enough, you can leave now. Togreheim said irritably, clearly upset by his property damage. Like a scorned partner, she swiftly changed her attitude after Kyosuke had gotten what he wanted. Rolling his eyes, Kyosuke asked. Now that I'm a contract holder, who'll respond to my summons in the future? He glanced at the young snake, hoping it wouldn't be his default partner. The small snake blinked pitifully, clearly hurt by his unspoken thoughts. Don't worry. Togreheim waved dismissively. The white snake sage specifically arranged for powerful summons to answer your call. Good. Kyosuke patted the young snake's head before departing Rechi Cave. Watching him leave, Togreheim muttered through gritted teeth. To hell with it. I'm not seducing him. Anyone else can do it. Sister Togreheim, why would you seduce Lord Kyosuke? Mind your own business, kid. Oh. Okay. After leaving Rechi Cave, Kyosuke swiftly made his way toward the battlefield to face the Senju in the decisive clash. The Uchiha were at their limit, retreating further would expose their heartlands. To protect their families, every Uchiha fought desperately, including their young clan leader, Madara Uchiha. Hashirama. Madara. The two clashed in a fierce confrontation. Chapter 73, The Longest Journey is Hashirama's schemes on the battlefield. Madara Uchiha and Senju Hashirama had become the most dazzling stars. Anyone below Jonin level would essentially meet death if they got involved. Even Jonin could easily lose their lives with just a single misstep when facing these two. Eventually, both sides agreed to let these prodigious young clan leaders handle things themselves. Fire style, majestic flame annihilation. Madara Uchiha's growing strength exuded an increasingly commanding aura. A fan-shaped inferno swept forward, leaving many Uchiha who prided themselves on mastering fire-style techniques utterly awestruck. The young clan leader is a genius among geniuses. I heard that Kyosuke from the southern forces is also quite remarkable. Who knows? I still think Lord Madara is stronger. The sea of fire advanced, burning everything in its path. Seeing this, Hashirama sighed, realizing that his friend was once again getting overly serious. Why take it so seriously? Isn't it better to pretend? Clapping his hands together, wooden walls burst from the ground, quickly forming a formidable barrier. No matter how ferocious the flames were, they couldn't break through the unified defense. Wood-style, tree wall barrier. Hashirama had become adept at using wood-style techniques. However, limited by his current strength, he couldn't yet unleash powerful moves like the wood dragon, wood golem, or even deep forest emergence. Nevertheless, his abilities had grown significantly, making him resistant to most conventional ninjutsu. Damn wood-style. Madara muttered, annoyed. If long-range attacks didn't work, he would settle things in close combat. With the Sharingan's support, he was confident that Hashirama wasn't his match. He activated the teleportation jutsu, a deceptively simple yet effective move. In an instant, Madara vaulted over the wooden barricade, appearing directly above his friend. Prepare to die, Hashirama. He shouted, swinging his scythe in a vicious downward arc. Hashirama dodged by ducking, but he overlooked Madara's already prepared fan in his left hand. Whack! The fan smacked Hashirama's head, sending him flying. Before he could hit the ground, Madara was already upon him again. You've lost, Madara declared, his tone cold and brimming with confidence. Hearing this, Hashirama twisted his body despite the scythe inches from his face, extending one hand toward his friend. Wood-style, smothering binding technique. Wooden tendrils erupted from his arm, wrapping around Madara in an instant. No matter how he struggled, the bindings wouldn't budge. Haha. Hashirama laughed foolishly. But before the laugh faded, Madara shook his head and vanished with a poof. Surprised? Madara's scythe pierced through Hashirama's back, the blade emerging from his chest and shattering his chest armor. This is Kyosuke's shadow clone technique. Unless you have a highly advanced Sharingan, it's impossible to discern. Blame yourself for not being an Uchiha, Madara said coldly, though his trembling voice betrayed his hesitation. Should he truly kill Hashirama? Though he had resolved to do so, at the critical moment, he deliberately avoided striking any vital organs. Despite the seemingly severe wound, Hashirama's internal organs were unharmed. For someone as resilient as him, a month of rest would suffice for full recovery. Madara, you're such a weak-willed fool, Madara muttered, attempting to provoke himself into action. But no matter how much he tried, he couldn't bring himself to deal a fatal blow. Madara. Hashirama's trembling hand reached out, his voice weak. I'm not going to make it. Do you still remember our dream? Our friendship? What's happening? Madara's eyes widened in panic, thinking he might have accidentally hit a vital point. Don't move. I'll get a medical ninja right now. Hang on, he said frantically. Don't go. Hashirama grabbed him, his eyes filled with a hazy, dying glow. I've been dying for a while. Wood-style has consumed too much of my life force. As your best friend, I'm happy you could send me off. Hashirama. Tell me, Madara, do you still remember our dream? Holding his friend's hand, Madara wanted to say that not only did he remember, but he knew Kyosuke still held on to it too. But before he could speak, Hashirama's body shattered into pieces of wood. Damn it. Hashirama emerged from behind the wooden wall, slamming his hand down in frustration, his face full of regret. So close. He had been so close to getting Madara to open up. If he could just speak the words, their relationship wouldn't have to remain as it was. Haha. Hashirama awkwardly scratched his head, muttering. That's my new wood-style technique. Even the Sharingan can't see through it, can it? Hearing this, Madara couldn't help but recall the earlier scene. His anger flared uncontrollably. Madara Uchiha, you bastard, I'm going to kill you today. Furious and humiliated, the Dance King charged at Hashirama, and the two clashed again. Fire style, dragon flame song technique. 4 fiery dragons roared toward their target. Forest barrier. Fire style, majestic flame annihilation. The fireball, resembling a falling meteor, was far more potent and expansive than the fire style, great fireball. Hashirama, my forest barrier. Damn it, Hashirama, don't you have any other jutsu? Madara realized that facing this guy made it too easy for him to lose his usual composure. Despite knowing better, he always ended up matching ninjutsu with him. Taking a deep breath, Madara regained his calm and used teleportation jutsu to close in on Hashirama again. Now, it's a life or death battle, Hashirama. With his ancestral scythe, Madara dominated in close combat, having relied on it to win several previous fights. However, the Senju clan also had their fair share of legendary weapons. Seizing an opportunity when Madara was pushed back by wood style, Hashirama retrieved a scroll from his waist, performed a series of seals, and unsealed a pair of sharp dual blades. Madara wielded a scythe in his right hand and a fan in his left, so Hashirama naturally countered with twin swords. That's only fair. Madara. Hashirama. Both unleashed their chakra to the fullest, clashing like two titans, creating shockwaves that shook the battlefield for hundreds of meters. Amid the chaos, a figure wielding a short sword crept closer. The target? A fatigued Madara Uchiha, momentarily drained from the intense battle. Chapter 74, Kyosuke appears and beats Tobirama senseless. From a long time ago, Tobirama had always been wary of Madara Uchiha's existence. To him, it was Madara who poisoned his elder brother's mind with words. The Uchiha clan was nothing but a group of untrustworthy villains. How could they ever be considered friends? He conveniently ignored the fact that it was Hashirama who persistently pursued the friendship. In Tobirama's view, once Madara was dead, his brother would return to normal. As for the idea of building a village? Sure, no problem. Wipe out the Uchiha first, and the Senju would unify the Land of Fire. With that achieved, they could even overthrow the daimyo and claim the throne. Unfortunately, his plans for ambushing Madara were repeatedly ignored by both his brother and father. His elder brother refused to harm a friend, while their father, Butsuma Senju, was too focused on dealing with Tajima Uchiha. If Hashirama chose not to participate, how much would it cost to kill Madara Uchiha? Not to mention, the Uchiha weren't fools. A one-on-one fight might work, but if they smelled a trap, they'd immediately call for reinforcements. After calculating all the factors, Tobirama realized he had, at most, 20 seconds to kill Madara. Even if Butsuma himself took action, it was impossible to eliminate the current Madara in that short time. Thus, the plan was shelved. Ultimately, neither Madara nor Hashirama was seen as a real threat by the true powerhouses of the era. The battlefield between the Uchiha and Senju clans was the highest stage of the Warring States period, featuring clan leaders and countless elite jonin. While Madara and Hashirama's clashes were thrilling, they weren't enough to sway the overall battle. Of course, Tobirama personally disagreed with this. He knew his brother's strength better than anyone. In less than 10 years, his elder brother would stand atop the shinobi world, unmatched and unshakable. At that time, the Uchiha clan across from them would undoubtedly become a significant threat. Understanding this, Tobirama resolved to kill Madara Uchiha today, even if it meant facing his brother's wrath. Die. Using Earth Style to tunnel closer, Tobirama suddenly emerged, launching his most lethal attack. Water Style, Water Severing Wave. A high-pressure, razor-sharp jet of water shot from Tobirama's mouth, capable of slicing through stone and trees with ease. Tobirama excelled in ambush tactics, always opting for stealth kills over direct confrontations. This habit was evident even in his childhood. Tobirama. Hashirama shouted, trying to stop his brother. It wasn't that he feared for Madara's safety. In fact, his sensory abilities told him that a familiar figure was rapidly approaching the battlefield. If Tobirama's sneak attack angered this individual, things could spiral out of control. It's true that a dog can't change its habit of eating shit. A familiar voice sounded, causing Madara Uchiha's arm, which was about to be raised, to slowly fall down. You're finally back, Kyosuke. The newcomer was none other than Kyosuke Uchiha, who had rushed to the battlefield just in time. With his fingers forming a seal, a lightning-style, Chidori sharp spear pierced through the air, intercepting Tobirama's water jet. The two high-compression jutsu collided and neutralized each other, resulting in a draw. Emerging from the ground, Tobirama cautiously eyed Kyosuke and asked, "What do you mean by that?" For a shinobi, ambushing an opponent was standard practice. What did he mean by comparing him to a dog eating its own shit? Feeling insulted, Tobirama frowned deeply. "What do I mean?" Kyosuke sneered, his eyes filled with killing intent. He harbored a strong grudge against Tobirama. This man who plundered enemy shinobi for his experiments on summoning, impure world reincarnation, killed Izuna using Flying Thunder God technique, obstructed alliances many times, and fostered animosity toward the Uchiha. Each of these actions contributed to Madara's eventual departure from Hidden Leaf Village, sowing discord for decades to come. Looking at Hashirama's anxious expression, a thought crossed Kyosuke's mind. What if, back then, it wasn't Izuna who died but Tobirama? Would Hashirama have still wholeheartedly accepted the Uchiha? Well, let's find out. Without waiting for a response, Kyosuke drew his Kusanagi sword and dashed toward the gray-haired boy. "Kyosuke, go easy on him." Hashirama rushed forward to intervene, only to be kicked aside by Madara. "Fool! How dare you look away during our fight?" Madara snarled, launching an all-out assault. Back on Kyosuke's side, he refrained from using his Chidori katana to gauge the Kusanagi sword sharpness. Tobirama instinctively blocked with a kunai while using one hand to weave seals for a jutsu. Water style, water clone jutsu. It had to be said, Tobirama's talent for ninjutsu was extraordinary. Unfortunately, today he faced his natural enemy. Ignoring the clone, Kyosuke applied a bit more force, shattering the kunai and leaving a deep gash across Tobirama's chest. The water clone, meanwhile, proved useless against the surrounding Chidori current, disintegrating upon contact. Such a sharp blade. Tobirama thought, realizing he needed to keep his distance. Water style, water formation wall. With a few simplified seals, a water barrier rose between them. Maintain a 10-meter distance. Be wary of his teleportation jutsu technique. ZZT. The sound of lightning surged through the air. Before Tobirama could retreat, Kyosuke's Chidori sharp spear pierced through the water wall and struck his shoulder, paralyzing him. Approaching the downed Tobirama, Kyosuke stomped on his face, sneering. "Brat, today I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your brother." Kyosuke stepped closer to Tobirama and ruthlessly kicked him square inches the face. Before Tobirama's body could stop rolling, a shuriken whistled through the air, pinning his left hand. Just as he tried forming a seal. Firmly to the ground. "Ah!" Tobirama screamed in pain. "Oh, you scream pretty loudly, huh?" Kyosuke chuckled darkly, stomping on Tobirama's face with force. "If you want to live, then beg for mercy. Say it. Say that the entire Senju clan is a bunch of bastards born of bitches. Say it, and I'll let you go." As expected, Tobirama refused to yield. Despite any flaws he might have, his stubborn pride wouldn't allow him to submit. Of course, that was exactly what Kyosuke loved the most. If they didn't resist, how could he enjoy inflicting more pain? A Chidori sharp spear pierced through Tobirama's other shoulder, intensifying his paralysis. Ignoring Hashirama's desperate shouts, Kyosuke resumed delivering a relentless barrage of punches and kicks. Soon enough, Tobirama's face was so battered that his eyes had swollen to narrow slits. "Kyosuke!" Hashirama's voice roared in fury, filled with desperation. Chapter 75, First Clash with Hashirama. Two wooden clones were created to temporarily block Madara, who was trying to advance. Hashirama, desperate to save his younger brother, rushed toward Kyosuke without hesitation. "Yo, can't remember your dreams now?" Kyosuke mocked, his face full of sarcasm. Kicking aside the unconscious Tobirama, he drew the Kusanagi sword and activated the Chidori blade, unleashing a powerful strike like the descent of Thor. Uchiha style, sword leap thunderclap. Such overwhelming power. Hashirama's pupils contracted as he realized that the weapon in Kyosuke's hands was no ordinary blade. Fortunately, the double blades passed down in the Senju clan were also legendary weapons from the Land of Iron, with chakra conductivity nearly at full capacity. He wasn't afraid to clash directly with Kyosuke. When they first met by the river, they had a brief skirmish, but unfortunately, it was interrupted by the King of Dance. "Come on, let's continue that unfinished fight." Super strength, double thorns explosion. With a roar, the chakra surrounding the two swords surged, extending over 2 meters in length. When the lightning blade collided with the double blades, the ground shattered like foam, and the clash resonated with the roar of chakra. Sand and stones scattered, and a violent wind howled as the two figures were sent flying backward. The man with the bowl-shaped hair staggered back 3 steps, while Kyosuke was forced to retreat 7.5 steps. Hashirama was a year older than Madara, making him over 3 years older than Kyosuke. Additionally, his sage body had started to advance to a higher level, giving him immense physical strength. Even though his weapon had an advantage, Kyosuke still found himself at a slight disadvantage in this clash. Looks like brute force doesn't work after all. Kyosuke moved his feet, planning to rely on his speed to win. More than 10 after-images of his teleportation jutsu filled the area, mixed with his shadow clones. With illusion and reality blending, Hashirama, who didn't have any eye techniques, could not distinguish which was which. Fortunately, he didn't need to chase Kyosuke around the battlefield. Clapping his hands together, Hashirama quickly performed a set of hand seals in less than 0.1 seconds. To any non-dujutsu ninja, it would look like he was releasing a jutsu without hand seals, just by clapping his hands. With his power, the ground around him suddenly sprouted many small saplings, which grew rapidly at an astonishing speed. Wood-style, tree-bind flourishing burial. Though he couldn't use the deep forest emergence, Hashirama certainly had backup secret jutsus to substitute for it. While the effect wasn't as devastating, it was still a good method for clearing the area. In just 2 breaths, the tiny saplings instantly grew into large trees, blocking Kyosuke's advance and spreading rapidly. This destroyed his fixed path of retreat, preventing him from using teleportation jutsu again. Reluctantly, Kyosuke had to activate the Chidori Sharp Spear and started acting as a temporary lumberjack. The tree-bind flourishing burial was nothing to worry about. The trees were only about 3 or 4 meters tall, nowhere near the giant trees that could reach dozens of meters in height. Kyosuke, armed with his blade, quickly eliminated the threat posed by the trees. Looking at Hashirama standing among the trees, Kyosuke sighed deeply, feeling only one thing. This is really fucking exhausting. He hadn't realized it before, but when facing Hashirama, Kyosuke began to understand the trouble with wood-style techniques. The strength of these techniques wasn't particularly outrageous. Many ninjutsu could destroy trees. The biggest problem wasn't the quality, but the overwhelming quantity. With sage body physical strength and chakra, even if you can't defeat me, you can still wear me down until I'm exhausted. This was Hashirama's true fighting style, which could be considered shameless in its efficiency. At that moment, Kyosuke suddenly realized he didn't have a powerful enough jutsu to end things quickly. Not being able to clear the field on a large scale meant it was difficult to approach Hashirama easily. The Flying Thunder God technique was an option, but he could only use the second stage of it after further progression. Given his current progress, that was still a long way off. I need to figure out a powerful jutsu. Kyosuke casually released a fire-style, Great Fireball, but seeing that Hashirama was still holding up an impenetrable defense, he shook his head and lost interest in continuing the fight. He couldn't touch Hashirama, and Hashirama couldn't catch him, so what was the point of fighting? It was just a matter of who got exhausted first. Instead of wasting time, he might as well go kill a few enemy ninjas to quickly accumulate points. I'm not fighting anymore. With that, Kyosuke left the battlefield. He had just returned from the outside and hadn't reported to the clan leader yet, so he shouldn't have been on the battlefield. However, there were few in the Uchiha clan who had the authority to command him, so when Kyosuke felt like it, he just took a stroll on the battlefield. And that's when he saw Obirama trying to sneak attack. By the way, I guess I helped Senju Hashirama educate his little brother. Shouldn't he thank me? After he left the battlefield, Madara was silent for a moment before saying nothing and followed Kyosuke back to the camp. As for Hashirama, seeing that his opponent was gone, he dispersed the trees around him, his face filled with disappointment. He had once thought that Madara was his best friend, and Kyosuke was the one who truly understood his dreams. He had hoped to persuade his stubborn friend through Kyosuke, but after their reunion, he found that Kyosuke harbored such great hostility. Is being honest with each other such an unreachable dream? Hashirama wondered, confused. On the other side, Kyosuke briefly described his experience during the return trip. The Rishi Cave? Madara rubbed his chin, looking quite intrigued. The 3 great sacred lands were recorded in the clan's archives. He had initially thought it was a fabrication, but now Kyosuke had actually encountered it. It's like nothing that happens to you is surprising. Madara suddenly said with a sigh. What about Izuna? Not wanting to delve deeper into the matter, Kyosuke naturally shifted the topic. Madara grinned when talking about his younger brother. He is training with father, and he don't have the ability to lead an army on his own yet. Besides, father and I aren't comfortable with him taking risks. What could Kyosuke say about that? It's nice to have someone protecting you. Unlike him, who, at the age of 7, had to step onto the southern battlefield. If not for the time travel, he probably would have already died. As they talked, the two quickly returned to the camp. They were greeted by Izuna and Tajima Uchiha, who was sitting in the tent with a fake smile. Welcome back. Tajima grabbed Kyosuke's arm, his enthusiasm akin to that of a hostess trying to attract customers in a red light district. Ignoring the awkward looks on his 2 sons' faces, Tajima couldn't stop praising Kyosuke, claiming Izuna needed to study harder and that Hashirama didn't even deserve to shine his shoes. He praised Kyosuke to the skies, as if the person who had once suppressed him wasn't himself. It was utterly hypocritical. Patriarch. Kyosuke interrupted Tajima's self-congratulation and asked in a deep voice. Whatever you want to say, just tell me. Seeing his straightforwardness, Tajima didn't hesitate and pulled out a battle damage report. The report clearly showed Kyosuke's army's remarkable performance. Battle achievements, first. Enemy kills, first. Efficiency, first. Casualty rate, the lowest in the entire army. Chapter 76, Even if it's my own father, he must die. Several statistics put him at the top of the Uchiha clan, proving his painstaking efforts were not in vain. Setting down the war report, Kyosuke seemed to realize something. Tajima had taken an interest in his signature jutsu. It seemed the pressure from the Senju was so great that even he was willing to lower his pride and seek Kyosuke's help. Too bad. He would have to disappoint the clan leader. Seeing Kyosuke's silence, Tajima Uchiha smiled and took the initiative to speak. It's like this, after a discussion, the clan elders believe Chidori should be widely taught, and I'm here to seek your opinion. They wanted him to give up his jutsu? Kyosuke swirled the water in his cup, neither agreeing nor refusing, and calmly asked. Did Elder Ray approve this decision? Tajima's smile instantly faded. Elder Ray is at the front lines and didn't attend the elders' meeting. How ungrateful. Tajima inwardly cursed. He had hoped to use this opportunity to win Kyosuke over, but the latter was proving stubborn. In that case, he wouldn't hesitate to use his authority as clan leader. I see. Kyosuke set down his cup, smiling faintly. I'm sorry, clan leader, but I must decline the elder's proposal. Why? Tajima frowned. You've already taught this jutsu to several people. Allowing more clan members to learn it would only strengthen our collective power. Oh, so now it was moral coercion? Kyosuke met Tajima's gaze, chuckling coldly. Increasing the strength of our clan is certainly my duty as a squad leader. I've heard that your signature fire-style techniques are the finest in the ninja world. If you're willing to teach them without reservation, I'll gladly offer the Chidori technique in return. Since they wanted to talk about contribution, then the clan leader should set an example. My fire-style techniques are too advanced. Tajima offered a flimsy excuse. Forcing others to learn them could result in unnecessary injuries. How weak was his reasoning? Judging by Azuna's uneasy expression, it was clear he found the situation embarrassing. I see. Kyosuke countered coolly. Chidori also has a high risk factor. Forcing its use might increase casualties among our clan members. Is there really no room for a negotiation? Tajima's face darkened. He knew Kyosuke had grown powerful, but he didn't expect him to openly defy orders. This only confirmed Tajima's suspicions that Kyosuke was harboring ambitions. It seemed his initial decision to be wary of this individual had been correct. If Kyosuke indeed had access to space-time ninjutsu, it would explain how he could assassinate Hikoichi Uchiha without anyone knowing. Hey, I still say the same thing, I'll give it to you if you give it to me. Kyosuke's eyes were cold, not caring about the clan leader's attitude at all. After today's conversation, both sides had a complete falling out. Tajima's shameless demands had exhausted Kyosuke's patience. In the world of shinobi, keeping one's techniques to oneself was the norm. Asking him to surrender his jutsu was as outrageous as demanding someone's bank pin in the modern era. If he didn't refuse outright, Tajima would only push further. Turning his back on the clan leader, Kyosuke showed no fear. Father. Madara interjected. Kyosuke is weary from travel. Let him rest for now. Very well. Surprisingly, Tajima's tone softened after their fallout. No longer interested in his hypocritical words, Kyosuke left without a glance, Madara following thoughtfully. Exiting the clan leader's tent, Kyosuke sighed deeply. As I've said before, only power can change everything. With that, he walked away, leaving Madara deep in thought. Meanwhile, Tajima, now rid of his younger son, dropped all pretense, his murderous intent plain. Kyosuke Uchiha, you are such an ungrateful person. After a moment of contemplation, Tajima clapped his hands, summoning a figure from behind a screen. What do you think? Tajima asked. Unexpectedly, the visitor knelt on one knee, lowered his head and said sincerely, Kyosuke is too ungrateful, please punish him severely, clan leader. Oh? Tajima smirked. Aren't you his cousin? Do you truly wish him harm? Kei-Jan Uchiha lowered his head further. I swore my allegiance to you, clan leader. Even if he were my own father, defiance against you cannot be tolerated. Tajima laughed heartily. After a moment, he helped Kei-Jun to his feet, his expression approving. How is the task I assigned you progressing? Please, take a look. Kei-Jun eagerly demonstrated. With a few hand seals, sparks of electricity crackled in his palm. A rudimentary form of Chidori. Excellent. Tajima said, pleased. Many had observed the technique, but none had been able to replicate it. Even Tajima himself had failed. Kei-Jun, though not as talented as Kyosuke, had proven himself a valuable asset. More importantly, he was obedient. After a few words of encouragement, Tajima dismissed Kei-Jun, instructing him to perfect the technique as soon as possible. Kyosuke, do you think you've kept your secret safe? Tajima sneered. I'll show you what it means to outsmart yourself. Ha 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 ha. His laughter echoed throughout the camp. In his own tent, Kei-Jun unclenched his fists, his face a mix of bitterness and determination. He hated Kyosuke for overshadowing him, hated Tajima for treating him like a tool, and hated the entire Uchiha clan for looking down on him. But he had no choice but to endure. For now. Kei-Jun. A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. Before he could turn around, the speaker wrapped their arms around him. No matter what happens, I'll always be here for you." The woman's voice soothed him. Turning to face her, Kai-Jun saw the concern etched on her beautiful face. If there was anything in the world that brought him joy besides revenge, it was her. "Kaku-chan," he murmured. Chapter 77, Dumplings are better than good food, fun is better than good entertainment in the headquarters of Kyosuke's army. "Be careful from now on." He briefly described what had just happened. Bang! Ma Uchiha stood up, gritting her teeth as if she were ready to bite off Tajima Uchiha's head. "They're bullying us. This isn't negotiation, this is outright coercion." The clan leader, resorting to such despicable means, really disgraces the Uchiha family. On the side, Izumi Uchiha wasn't as hot-headed as Maya. It's not that he wasn't angry, but he understood that Tajima Uchiha's filthy thoughts went beyond this. "I've heard that your cousin is highly valued by the clan leader." "Oh?" Hearing this, Kyosuke's interest was piqued. Over the past year, Kai-Jun Uchiha has made rapid progress. "I heard he's had 3 different teachers assigned to him." At this point, Izumi glanced at Kyosuke, who was listening with great interest, then paused before continuing. "One of them is Keisuke Uchiha, your teacher." "That ghost father teacher?" Kyosuke rubbed his chin and murmured. "Well, with the help of Keisuke-sensei, I'm sure my cousin is benefiting greatly." Both his subordinates exchanged confused glances. Why did Kyosuke seem so odd about this? Normally, one would expect him to be more angry. "Anything else?" "Yes." The subordinate continued. "It's said that the clan leader has already started researching the Chidori technique. Many people are trying to reverse engineer it from the hand seals. Indeed, with so many of our subordinates having learned Chidori, the hand seals can't be kept secret. It's inevitable that someone will steal it." This statement left the two of them more bewildered. Seeing their puzzled expressions, Kyosuke smiled and shook his head. "You need to think bigger. The Uchiha's strength is our strength. Eventually, this power will be used for our benefit. Our clan leader has many good qualities, but his vision is too narrow. He can't see beyond the present." Kyosuke's high-flown talk completely confused the two subordinates. They didn't fully understand, but now one thing was clear in their minds. Kyosuke's level of thinking was truly high, beyond what ordinary people like them could fathom. "Remember, don't get angry. Anger lowers your intelligence. And don't hold grudges against your enemies. Hatred clouds your judgment." Once Kyosuke was done venting, he leisurely asked. "So, did our clan leader succeed?" I don't think so." "Of course not. If he had succeeded, they wouldn't have had that previous scene." Report. At that moment, someone outside the tent suddenly sent a message. Not long ago, a sound similar to Chidori ninjutsu was heard from the clan leader's tent. Hearing this, Maya immediately asked coldly. "Was there anyone else inside the tent besides the clan leader?" Kai-Jun Uchiha." As soon as the words were spoken, the tent fell into a deep silence. Realizing something was off, the subordinate quietly withdrew, vanishing without a trace. Looking at Kyosuke, who remained silent, the two of them exchanged another glance, wondering whether he would be upset. Seeing nothing amiss, they decided to excuse themselves and leave. When they were alone, Kyosuke could no longer suppress his frustration, muttering a string of curses under his breath. After a while, he calmed down, using a secret command to summon a hidden ninja, one whom even Maya and Izumi didn't know existed. The two whispered for more than 10 minutes, then the secret ninja disappeared, and Kyosuke, as if nothing had happened, left the camp. Come to think of it, I really do miss that cousin of mine. Outside the camp, at a hidden training area, Kai-Jun Uchiha gritted his teeth, gathering chakra inside him. After a long period of study and trial, he had nearly perfected the Chidori technique. 70% of the progress was his own doing, and the other 30% was thanks to his girlfriend's help. Kaku Uchiha, an ordinary chunin with no remarkable features other than her sweet and cute appearance. By chance, Kai-Jun had saved her from danger, and since then, they had fallen deeply in love and never left each other's side. Without his girlfriend's encouragement and support, Kai-Jun might have given up long ago. As a person who had crossed Kyosuke, there were many who wanted to take their frustrations out on him, especially the barbarian army returning from the south. Without the clan leader's protection and his girlfriend's encouragement, Kai-Jun might have already ended up dead in some filthy gutter. Looking at his girlfriend, who was silently wiping sweat off his forehead, Kai-Jun Uchiha swore he would never let anyone harm her. Just as he was about to steal a moment alone with his girlfriend, footsteps suddenly sounded behind him. Turning around, Kai-Jun's face instantly changed. His Sharingan activated, and he quickly pulled his girlfriend behind him. "What do you want?" he demanded, his voice cold. Hearing this, the visitor looks very hurt. "Come on, is there something wrong with wanting to meet my own brother?" "Brother?" Kaijun Uchiha fought to keep his anger in check and tried to sound calm. We've met now, but I have things to do, so I won't be accompanying you. He started to pull his girlfriend away, but just as he took a step forward, a kunai appeared right at his neck. I didn't say you could leave, Kyosuke said with a cold smile, his gaze turning to the defiant girl. Ah, so this is my sister-in-law. How delicate and soft. Even I, as a younger brother, can't help but feel tempted. With Kaijun glaring murderously at him, Kyosuke reached out and began to caress Kaku's face. Do you want the complete method for mastering Chidori? Kyosuke suddenly brought up the important point. Upon hearing this, Kaijun's heart sank as he realized the secret had been exposed. If you can't produce the completed technique, our dear clan leader won't let you off. Kyosuke's gaze then shifted to Kaku. You wouldn't want him to suffer the clan leader's punishment, right? What do you want? Kaku asked, tears in her eyes as her body trembled slightly. Despite her fear, her face still showed defiance. Much more than her boyfriend. Want to learn Chidori? I can teach you. Kyosuke kicked Kaijun aside and grabbed Kaku's hands, pulling her into his embrace. A perfect opportunity. You should consider it carefully. I'm not someone who forces others. Releasing her, Kyosuke shot Kaijun a disdainful look and used his teleportation jutsu to leave the area. Behind him, Kaijun, who had been holding back, finally exploded. Kyosuke Uchiha, one day, I'll personally kill you. Chapter 78, I'm also a snake charmer. In the end, Kyosuke did not wait for the woman to knock on the door. Feeling rather bored, he decided to find a quiet spot to work on developing a new jutsu. Hashirama's wood style was too troublesome to deal with. One wrong move and it would turn into a battle of stamina and chakra depletion. Instead of wasting energy in endless battles, it made more sense to focus on creating new techniques. In fact, he had started this research quite some time ago. As Kyosuke's power continued to grow,